The human body is a place of extraordinary balance, where millions of processes unfold quietly every second to sustain life. Most of these processes occur without conscious thought. You do not need to remind your lungs to take in air, nor must you instruct your heart to beat. In much the same way, you are not aware of the countless protective forces that move silently through your blood and tissues, standing guard against invaders. This protective network is what we call the immune system, and it works with a kind of calm vigilance that allows life to continue in peace even as invisible threats drift through the world around you. To introduce antibodies and vaccines, it is useful to begin with this quiet image: the body as a self-sustaining home, and the immune system as the set of unseen caretakers who maintain its harmony. Every day, without your noticing, your body is exposed to countless foreign particles. They arrive on the air you breathe, in the food you eat, or simply through touch. Many of these particles are harmless, perhaps fragments of dust or pollen that pass without issue. Some, however, carry the potential to disrupt balance. Bacteria, viruses, and toxins are examples of intruders that can threaten health. Yet even as they appear, most are intercepted before they have the chance to cause serious harm. This is not because of willpower, nor because of any conscious decision, but rather because your immune system is always present, always responding, always working to preserve you. The story of immunity is not one of constant battle in the sense of noise or chaos. Instead, it is more like a gentle, constant scanning of the environment. Cells drift through the bloodstream, circulating with purpose, noticing when something does not belong. Proteins fold in ways that allow them to recognize foreign structures, almost like a key finding the lock it was meant for. If you imagine the body as a library of quiet order, then the immune system is the librarian, ensuring that only the right books remain on the shelves, carefully guiding out anything misplaced. This is the atmosphere in which antibodies and vaccines must be understood, not as weapons of aggression, but as tools of balance, keeping order in a world that is constantly changing. The very idea of immunity is tied to memory, to recognition, and to a gentle form of preparation. When you meet a particular virus for the first time, your immune system takes note. It learns the patterns, the distinctive features that make the virus what it is, and it stores that knowledge away. Later, should the same virus attempt to return, the immune system is ready. Its response is faster, more precise, and often so effective that you barely notice any symptoms at all. Immunity, then, is not only about immediate protection, but also about the building of a quiet library of experiences, a memory that stretches across a lifetime. This introduction would be incomplete without acknowledging the role of antibodies, those elegant, Y-shaped proteins that carry much of the burden of recognition and response. Antibodies are among the immune system's most graceful tools. They do not destroy invaders directly, but instead recognize them, attach to them, and signal for other parts of the immune system to take over. They can neutralize harmful toxins, prevent viruses from entering cells, and tag bacteria for removal. Their action is precise rather than forceful, a kind of quiet hand extended toward the invader, preventing harm before it spreads. To appreciate antibodies is to appreciate the detail of nature's design, where structure and function meet in harmony. Vaccines, in turn, can be understood as the gentle tutors of this system. They provide a safe lesson to the body, a rehearsal for threats that may one day arrive. Instead of allowing illness to teach through pain and risk, vaccines offer a controlled introduction. A small fragment of a virus, or a harmless version of a bacterium, is presented to the immune system. The body responds as if the threat were real, producing antibodies and creating memory cells, but no disease follows. In this way, vaccines prepare the immune system while preserving health. They are not an intrusion but a training session, a rehearsal in which the body learns without suffering. In reflecting on immunity, one cannot help but notice the quiet partnership between individual and community. While antibodies protect each person, vaccines extend that protection outward, weaving a fabric of safety across entire populations. When enough people are immune to a disease, even those who cannot receive a vaccine, such as infants or those with certain medical conditions, are indirectly protected. This is called herd immunity, and it is a reminder that immunity is not only a personal defense but also a shared resource. Like the gentle ripples across a pond, one person's protection extends outward, contributing to the well-being of many. It is also worth considering how ancient this relationship is. Immunity is not unique to humans. Animals across the natural world possess immune systems, some remarkably simple, others highly complex. Even plants have their own protective responses against invaders. The principle is the same. Life, in order to persist, must be able to distinguish between self and not self, between the familiar and the foreign. Antibodies and vaccines are simply human names for processes that echo across the tree of life. In this sense, when you think about immunity, you are not only thinking about yourself, but about a universal feature of living things: the ability to recognize, to remember, and to respond. As you settle deeper into this subject, imagine your body at rest, lying quietly, and yet within you, a network is always awake. White blood cells float silently. Antibodies drift like tiny keys waiting for the locks they fit, and memory cells rest quietly, ready to awaken at the first sign of a familiar pattern. Nothing about this activity disturbs your peace. On the contrary, it allows peace to exist. You are not conscious of it, and yet it sustains you through every hour of every day. This is the true nature of immunity: a calm and unbroken vigilance that allows life to continue in balance. This lecture will, in the parts to come, move gradually from the basic structure of antibodies to the way they recognize invaders, from the earliest experiments with vaccines to the most modern developments in vaccine science. At each step, the emphasis will remain on the quiet, continuous presence of immunity. It is not a story of battles and wars, but of recognition and memory, of gentle balance maintained across a lifetime. For now, let us hold on to this introduction as an image of comfort, that even as you rest, your body continues to watch over you, its quiet defenders, ensuring that life remains in harmony. 2. The immune system at a glance. When we step quietly into the world of the immune system, it is helpful to imagine it not as a battlefield filled with noise and conflict, but as a vast landscape of gentle communication, where every part knows its role and fulfills it with care. The immune system is a network that stretches across the body, present in the blood, in the tissues, and even within the smallest spaces between cells. It is not a single organ, nor a single structure, but rather a collection of many components that work together in harmony. Each has its own way of contributing to balance, and together they create a system of quiet resilience. The immune system can be thought of in layers. The first layer is simple and physical: the barriers that separate the body from the outside world. The skin, with its strong yet flexible surface, prevents most intruders from ever entering. Mucous membranes that line the nose, mouth, and lungs trap particles and prevent them from moving deeper. Tears, saliva, and the acid in the stomach further act as guardians, washing away or destroying potential threats before they can settle. These barriers form the first impression of the immune system: a gentle wall, silent but sturdy, standing between the inner self and the outer world. Yet sometimes, despite these barriers, an invader finds a way through. When that happens, deeper layers of defense awaken. This is where white blood cells come into focus. They are not all the same, but rather a diverse family of cells, each with its own role. Some patrol constantly, looking for anything that seems out of place. Others respond to signals from their neighbors, arriving only when called. A few specialize in remembering past encounters, holding the memory of past threats so that the body can respond more swiftly in the future. They are like a quiet orchestra, each instrument distinct, but together producing a song of protection. Among these white blood cells, two groups are especially important: the innate defenders and the adaptive learners. The innate system is ancient, shared across many forms of life, and it responds quickly to any sign of danger. When a splinter pierces the skin or a germ enters the lungs, these innate cells respond within minutes, engulfing bacteria, releasing signals, and creating an environment that is difficult for invaders to survive in. The adaptive system, by contrast, is slower at first but far more precise. It does not only recognize the presence of danger, it studies the details, memorizes patterns, and produces targeted responses. Antibodies, the elegant Y-shaped proteins, belong to this adaptive system, created after careful recognition of a foreign signature. The adaptive immune system remembers, and with that memory comes long-term protection. This balance between the fast and the precise is one of the remarkable features of immunity. The innate system holds the line in the early hours of an encounter, keeping threats under control, while the adaptive system gradually awakens, learns, and crafts a more refined response. Together, they embody the principle of cooperation. Neither alone would be sufficient, but in combination, they form a defense that is both immediate and enduring. In the quiet workings of the immune system, speed and memory are woven together like threads in a fabric, producing resilience that lasts across a lifetime. Communication is another key feature of this system. Immune cells do not act independently, wandering without purpose. Instead, they speak to one another in chemical signals. These signals are called cytokines and chemokines, small molecules that carry messages from one cell to another. When an infection begins, one cell releases a signal that attracts others, guiding them to the site of need. The process is not chaotic, it is coordinated, like the slow ripple of water across a pond. Signals travel outward, cells arrive, and each knows what to do. The result is not noise but an organized response, quiet in its precision, yet powerful in its effect. The organs of the immune system also deserve mention. The bone marrow, deep within the skeleton, is where many immune cells are born. The thymus, located just behind the sternum, is where certain lymphocytes mature, learning to distinguish between what belongs to the body and what does not. The lymph nodes, scattered throughout the body, act as meeting places where cells share information and coordinate their responses. The spleen, resting on the left side of the body, filters blood and provides another gathering space for immune activity. These organs are not loud in their presence. You do not feel them at work, yet they form the hidden architecture of immunity, the quiet rooms where guardians prepare for their duties. An important aspect of the immune system is its ability to distinguish self from non-self. Every cell in the body carries a set of markers, like identification cards, that signal to the immune system, "I belong here." When an invader arrives, it lacks these familiar markers. It stands out as different, and the immune system takes note. This recognition is subtle, but it is essential. Without it, the immune system could mistake its own cells for foreign ones, leading to confusion and self-damage. This careful discernment is one of the reasons the immune system is so remarkable. It knows not only when to respond, but also when to remain at peace. The immune system is not without its occasional errors. Sometimes it responds too strongly, as in the case of allergies, where harmless substances like pollen or dust provoke an exaggerated defense. Other times it may fail to recognize a threat quickly enough, allowing an infection to spread. Yet even with these imperfections, the immune system is profoundly effective. For the vast majority of encounters with foreign particles, it works so smoothly that you remain entirely unaware of what has occurred. This is perhaps its greatest strength: protection without disturbance, vigilance without intrusion. As you picture the immune system at a glance, it may be helpful to imagine a quiet river flowing through your body, carrying with it countless cells and proteins. Some drift slowly, waiting for a signal. Others move with more purpose, traveling to places where they are needed. Along the banks of this river are stations, lymph nodes, the spleen, the thymus, where travelers pause, gather information, and prepare for what comes next. The river never stops flowing, just as the immune system never ceases its watch. Day and night, whether you are awake or asleep, it continues its work in silence. To appreciate the immune system is to appreciate its patience and its subtlety. It does not rely on brute force alone, but on recognition, memory, and balance. It protects not only through attack but also through restraint, knowing when to remain silent and when to act. It is not only a system of defense but also one of harmony, preserving the conditions that allow every other part of the body to continue its work. As you reflect on this system at a glance, consider it not a source of anxiety but a source of comfort. Even now, as you rest, your immune system is awake, gently watching, ensuring that you remain safe within the quiet rhythm of life. 3. The first line of defense. Before we enter into the intricacies of antibodies and the adaptive immune system, it is important to linger for a time at the very first barriers that stand between the human body and the outside world. These barriers are the body's first line of defense, and though they do not think, do not learn, and do not remember in the way that antibodies do, they are perhaps the most constant guardians of health. They act not with aggression but with stillness, creating boundaries that keep much of the world's invisible hazards from ever making contact with the more delicate tissues within. To understand the immune system as a whole, it is calming to imagine these barriers as the outer walls of a quiet sanctuary, steady and enduring. The most obvious of these barriers is the skin, stretching over the entire surface of the body. It is both flexible and strong, an organ that separates the inner self from the outer environment. Its outermost layer, composed of tightly packed cells filled with keratin, is dry and relatively inhospitable to microbes. Many invaders cannot survive long upon it. Natural oils and sweat contribute to this protective effect, altering the surface environment so that harmful organisms find it difficult to thrive. The skin is not simply a passive covering but an active participant in protection, producing antimicrobial substances that discourage the growth of bacteria. Even the constant shedding of dead skin cells has a role, for with every flake that drifts away, potential invaders are carried off as well. Beyond the skin, there are other surfaces exposed to the outside world, and they too form protective layers. The lining of the mouth, the nose, the throat, and the lungs is covered with mucous membranes. These membranes produce a substance called mucus, thick and sticky, which serves as a gentle trap for particles. Dust, bacteria, and viruses can become caught in this coating, held in place until they are removed. The body has ways of moving this mucus, often with tiny hair-like structures called cilia. In the respiratory tract, cilia beat rhythmically, sweeping mucus upward toward the throat, where it can be swallowed and sent into the acidic environment of the stomach. It is a quiet conveyor belt of cleanliness, moving tirelessly, always carrying unwanted particles away from the delicate tissues of the lungs. The eyes, too, are protected, not only by their lids but by a continuous flow of tears. These tears are not simply water. They contain enzymes such as lysozyme, which can break down bacterial walls. Each blink spreads this protective film across the surface of the eye, washing away dust and microbes before they can settle. In much the same way, saliva in the mouth serves both to moisten food and to rinse away potential intruders. again containing enzymes that quietly neutralize bacterial threats. Even the simple act of swallowing has a protective effect, moving materials downward into the stomach, where acids dissolve much of what arrives. The stomach's acidity is one of the most potent defenses in the body, capable of destroying many microbes before they ever have the chance to reach the intestines. The first line of defense also includes the natural communities of organisms that live upon and within the body. These are the microbiota, the beneficial bacteria that colonize the skin, the mouth, the intestines, and other areas. Though invisible to the naked eye, they are numerous and varied, outnumbering human cells by vast margins. Their presence is not threatening but protective, for they compete with harmful invaders, consuming available nutrients and occupying space. In doing so, they leave little room for more dangerous microbes to establish themselves. They also produce substances that discourage the growth of unwanted species, creating a quiet balance between host and guest that strengthens overall protection. The nose, as the main entrance for air, offers another layer of defense. Inside the nasal passages, tiny hairs and mucus act together to trap dust and microbes before they travel further into the lungs. Sneezing, though often thought of as a disturbance, is one of the body's simplest clearing mechanisms, expelling irritants with a sudden burst of air. Similarly, coughing helps to clear the lower respiratory tract, pushing out materials that do not belong. These actions, though sometimes inconvenient, are part of the constant maintenance of the body's inner environment, gentle reminders that the body is always working to keep itself safe. It is also worth considering the role of chemical barriers beyond the stomach. The skin, for example, has a slightly acidic surface, a result of secretions from sweat and oil glands. This acidity makes it difficult for many bacteria to grow. In the urinary tract, the regular flow of urine washes away potential invaders, and the fluid itself contains substances that discourage bacterial colonization. In the reproductive system, protective secretions also play a role. All of these mechanisms combine to create an environment that is far less welcoming to microbes than one might imagine, a silent strategy that reduces the chances of infection long before the deeper immune system is ever called upon. These barriers may seem simple compared to the sophisticated recognition carried out by antibodies, but they represent an essential principle of immunity, prevention. By stopping invaders at the gates, the body avoids the need for more energy-intensive responses deeper within. This is efficient, but it is also gentle. Most of the time, you are not aware of the skin preventing entry, or of the mucus carrying particles upward, or of tears quietly rinsing the eyes. These actions are continuous, quiet, and unnoticed, yet they preserve the conditions that allow life to continue without interruption. It is calming to reflect on how much is managed without effort or awareness. Every breath you take is filtered. Every bite of food is tested by acid. Every surface of the body is quietly monitored. The first line of defense is not dramatic, nor does it need to be. Its strength lies in its constancy, its ability to maintain boundaries day after day, year after year. Like the walls of a home, it is not often thought about. But without it, the delicate contents within would be exposed. When considering the immune system as a whole, it is easy to become absorbed in the complexity of antibodies, memory cells, and vaccines. Yet none of those would be effective without this quiet foundation. The barriers of skin, mucus, secretions, and natural microbiota are the unsung protectors of health. They remind us that not all defense requires conflict, and not all protection is dramatic. Sometimes the most powerful safeguards are those that work silently, continuously, and without the need for recognition. As you reflect on this first line of defense, it becomes clear that the body's greatest strength may lie in its ability to maintain peace, gently and persistently, from the very moment the world touches its surface. 4. White blood cells and their roles. Within the body's gentle orchestra of defense white blood cells take on a role that is both diverse and essential. They are not a single type of cell, but rather a family of guardians, each shaped for a particular task. Some move with quiet patience, surveying the bloodstream for signs of trouble. Others are quick responders, rushing to the scene of injury or infection. Still others act as messengers, bridging one part of the immune system to another, ensuring that information flows smoothly. Together, they create a living network that responds fluidly to whatever the body encounters. To think of white blood cells is to think of movement and watchfulness, a constant circulation of quiet protectors within. White blood cells, or leukocytes, are born in the bone marrow. From there, they enter the bloodstream, ready to drift through the vessels and the tissues of the body. Unlike red blood cells, which carry oxygen and move in vast numbers, white blood cells are relatively few, yet their importance is profound. They are the sentinels, always alert, always ready. In their variety, we find macrophages, neutrophils, lymphocytes, eosinophils, basophils, and more, each a distinct figure with a particular character. Their names may seem clinical, but their actions are graceful, like roles in a quiet performance that repeats endlessly for the sake of life itself. One of the earliest responders among these cells is the neutrophil. Neutrophils are abundant and fast, moving toward any sign of trouble with remarkable speed. When bacteria slip past the body's first defenses, neutrophils are often the first to arrive. They engulf invaders, breaking them down within themselves, and in doing so they sacrifice their own existence for the body's protection. Though their lives are short, their willingness to respond quickly makes them invaluable. Imagine them as a gentle yet determined wave, rushing forward to soften the impact of an intruder before it can spread further. Alongside neutrophils are macrophages, whose name means big eaters. These cells move more slowly, but with greater endurance. They, too, engulf invaders, wrapping around them and breaking them down. But they have another role as well. They act as teachers. When a macrophage encounters something foreign, it does not simply destroy it and move on. Instead, it takes fragments of that invader and presents them to other immune cells, sharing information so that a more targeted response can be prepared. In this way, macrophages are like storytellers, passing along the details of what they have seen so that the body can learn and remember. Lymphocytes are the cells most closely associated with antibodies and immune memory. They include B cells and T cells, two groups that play different but complementary roles. B cells are responsible for producing antibodies, those Y-shaped proteins that bind to invaders with precision. T cells, by contrast, may take on roles of coordination or direct destruction. Some T cells help B cells to produce antibodies, while others seek out infected cells and gently cause them to self-destruct, preventing the spread of viruses. Together, B and T cells embody the adaptive arm of the immune system, the part that learns and remembers. Though their actions may take longer to initiate than those of neutrophils or macrophages, their precision and their ability to store memory make them essential to long-term protection. Eosinophils and basophils, though less often mentioned, contribute in their own ways. Eosinophils are particularly important in dealing with parasites, which require a different approach than bacteria or viruses. Basophils, along with their tissue-based counterparts called mast cells, release chemicals such as histamine, which influence blood flow and alert other cells to gather at the site of need. Though their actions sometimes lead to the discomfort of allergic reactions, they are also part of the finely tuned system that ensures the body remains responsive to changes. Each of these cells, though smaller in number than neutrophils or lymphocytes, is a reminder of how diverse the immune system is, with each type fulfilling a quiet and particular role. Communication among white blood cells is constant and subtle. They send and receive signals in the form of small molecules that drift through the bloodstream. These signals can call cells to a location, instruct them to divide, or calm them once a response is no longer needed. The balance of these messages is delicate. Too strong a signal may lead to excessive inflammation, while too weak a signal may leave the body vulnerable. And yet, most of the time, the balance is maintained. A quiet conversation, continuing invisibly within you, orchestrating protection without drawing attention. It is important to remember that white blood cells are not confined only to the bloodstream. They move in and out of tissues, traveling through a network called the lymphatic system. This system includes lymph nodes, small stations where white blood cells gather, share information, and prepare for further action. When you have felt a lymph node swell during illness, it is often because these stations are filling with immune cells, quietly working to contain the problem. The lymphatic system connects distant parts of the body, allowing cells to circulate widely, ensuring that no area is left unguarded. The lifespan of white blood cells varies. Some, like neutrophils, live only for a few days, serving as immediate responders. Others, like memory T cells, may endure for years, carrying with them the record of past encounters. This range of lifespans reflects the layered nature of immunity. Fast responses for immediate need, long-term memory for lasting protection. It is a system designed not for panic but for balance, providing defense at every time scale. Perhaps the most remarkable quality of white blood cells is their adaptability. They are not rigid in their actions but can alter their behavior depending on what they encounter. A macrophage that engulfs a bacterium behaves differently from one that encounters a virus. A B cell exposed to one antigen produces a different antibody than it would against another. This flexibility allows the immune system to respond to the vast diversity of threats in the world. It is as though these cells carry within them the ability to learn many languages, speaking each fluently when the situation requires. As you reflect on the roles of white blood cells, it is calming to realize how tirelessly they work without your awareness. They do not rest when you sleep, nor do they stop when you are distracted. They drift silently through blood and tissue, always scanning, always responding, always prepared. Their actions are not loud or dramatic, but steady, persistent, and deeply effective. They are the living guardians within, ensuring that the body remains safe and balanced, moment by moment, day after day. In the larger picture of immunity, white blood cells are the foundation of activity, the hands that carry out the work initiated by recognition and guided by memory. They embody the principle of quiet vigilance, each contributing its part to the overall harmony. To know them is to appreciate the intricacy of the immune system, a system that functions not through force alone but through diversity, communication, and balance. And as you rest, it is comforting to remember that this diverse family of cells is always with you, circulating gently, keeping watch, and preserving the calm within. 5. What antibodies are. To move deeper into the quiet world of immunity, we arrive now at antibodies, the elegant molecules that represent one of the most refined creations of the human body. Antibodies are proteins, but not ordinary ones. They are shaped with extraordinary precision, built to recognize and bind to the smallest details of foreign invaders. When we imagine the immune system, antibodies can be pictured as tiny keys, drifting gently through the bloodstream, waiting to encounter the locks they were designed to fit. Their form is graceful, and their function is essential. They are not loud defenders, nor do they directly destroy what they touch. Instead, they recognize, attach, and signal, allowing the rest of the immune system to act with accuracy. The structure of an antibody is strikingly consistent. Each one is shaped like the letter Y. The stem of the Y, known as the constant region, provides stability, and determines the general class of the antibody. The two arms, known as the variable regions, are where the magic occurs. At the tips of those arms are pockets shaped with exquisite care, each designed to match a particular target, known as an antigen. An antigen might be a fragment of a virus, a protein on the surface of a bacterium, or even a toxin secreted by an invading organism. Whatever its nature, the antigen has features that stand out as foreign, and the antibody's variable regions are formed to bind to them. This binding is not random. It is precise, as though the antibody had studied the shape of the invader and sculpted itself to match. What makes antibodies remarkable is their diversity. The human body is capable of producing billions of different antibodies, each with a slightly different shape at the tips of its arms. This diversity ensures that, no matter what foreign particle appears, there is a strong chance that an antibody exists with the right fit to recognize it. At first, these matches may be imperfect, but through processes of refinement inside the body, antibodies can become even more precise, adjusting themselves to bind more tightly to their targets. This adaptability gives the immune system a nearly limitless capacity for recognition, allowing it to respond to the endless variety of microbes in the world. Antibodies are produced by B cells, a type of lymphocyte that we encountered earlier. When a B cell encounters an antigen, it can become activated, transforming into a plasma cell. Plasma cells are like antibody factories, producing large quantities of a specific antibody and releasing them into the bloodstream. These antibodies then spread throughout the body, ready to encounter their matching antigens wherever they may be found. It is a gentle and efficient system. One cell learns, many cells respond, and soon the bloodstream is filled with countless copies of the protective protein. Once an antibody finds its target, it binds, and in that simple act of attachment, many things are accomplished. Sometimes the binding alone is enough to neutralize the threat. For example, if a virus requires a certain protein to attach to a human cell, an antibody can block that protein, preventing entry. In other cases, the antibody serves as a signal, marking the invader so that other immune cells know what to remove. Macrophages and neutrophils, those patient eaters of foreign particles, recognize antibodies attached to their targets and engulf what they find. Antibodies can also activate a set of proteins called the complement system, which further aids in clearing invaders. In every case, the antibody itself does not destroy, but rather guides, pointing out what needs attention and allowing other parts of the immune system to finish the work. There are several different classes of antibodies, each with its own role. Immunoglobulin G, or IgG, is the most abundant in the blood and provides long-term protection after infection or vaccination. Immunoglobulin A, or IgA, is found in mucous membranes, saliva, tears, and breast milk, guarding the entrances of the body. Immunoglobulin M, or IgM, is the first type produced during an initial response, forming clusters that are especially effective in binding large invaders. Immunoglobulin E, or IgE, is involved in responses to parasites and also plays a role in allergies, where it can sometimes trigger reactions to harmless substances. Immunoglobulin D, or IgD, is less well understood but is thought to play a role in activating B cells. These classes represent the subtlety of the immune system's design. Not one tool, but many, each suited to a particular environment and need. The life of an antibody is not indefinite. They circulate for days to weeks, gradually fading away. Yet the memory of their creation remains. Memory B cells, formed during the initial response, linger in the body for years, ready to produce more antibodies quickly if the same invader returns. This is why, once you have been exposed to a particular infection or received a vaccine, you often remain protected long afterward. The antibodies themselves may come and go, but the blueprint for making them is preserved, and the response, should it be needed again, is swift and strong. One of the most fascinating aspects of antibodies is their adaptability across species. Antibodies are not unique to humans. They are found in all vertebrates, from fish to birds to mammals. Each species has developed its own version, but the principle remains the same: a Y-shaped protein with a stable base and variable tips, capable of recognizing and binding to antigens. This universality speaks to the power of the design, refined through millions of years of evolution, preserved because it works so well. In every corner of the animal kingdom, antibodies provide a quiet but effective form of recognition, a molecular handshake that distinguishes self from other. To picture antibodies in action, imagine them as tiny lanterns drifting through the bloodstream. They float quietly, unnoticed, until they encounter something unfamiliar. Then, like a lantern lighting a path, they attach and shine a signal. Here is something that does not belong. Other cells see the signal and move toward it, guided by the gentle light. The antibody itself does not fight, but its presence makes all the difference, transforming the invisible into the recognizable, the hidden into the marked. In this way, antibodies bring clarity to the immune system, allowing it to act with accuracy rather than force alone. The story of antibodies is also the story of vaccines. For vaccines work by training the body to produce these proteins in advance of a real infection. By presenting the immune system with a safe version of an antigen, vaccines stimulate the production of antibodies without causing disease. These antibodies, and the memory cells that follow, remain as a reservoir of protection, ready to act if the true invader appears. It is a quiet rehearsal, a practice that ensures readiness, and antibodies are the central performers in this drama. Without them, the memory would fade, and the preparation would not be complete. As you reflect on antibodies, it is calming to see them not as weapons but as guides. Their role is not to destroy but to recognize, to attach, and to signal. They embody the principle of precision, crafted to fit the smallest details of the world around us. Billions of them drift through you even now, unseen and unnoticed, yet essential. Their presence allows you to move through a world filled with microbes, confident that recognition and memory are always at work. They are the quiet guardians of the bloodstream, the keepers of detail, and the silent partners in the harmony of immunity. 6. Recognizing invaders. The beauty of the immune system lies not only in its vigilance but also in its extraordinary ability to recognize the difference between what belongs to the body and what does not. This act of recognition is quiet, constant, and deeply intricate. At the very heart of this recognition are antibodies, those Y-shaped proteins that float serenely through the bloodstream, waiting for signs of what is foreign. When we speak of recognition in this context, we mean the ability to identify antigens, those unique markers that distinguish bacteria, viruses, or toxins from the body's own cells. The relationship between an antibody and its antigen is one of precision and delicacy, a molecular dance that ensures defense without confusion. To understand recognition, it helps to imagine every living thing as carrying a pattern, a set of shapes and structures on its surface that declare what it is. Human cells carry markers called major histocompatibility complexes, or MHC, which serve as a kind of identification card. The immune system learns to recognize these markers as belonging, as self. When a cell presents these familiar signals, the immune system remains calm, knowing there is no danger. Foreign organisms, by contrast, carry different markers. A bacterium may have proteins embedded in its outer membrane. A virus may display spikes on its surface, or a toxin may present a unique chemical shape. These differences, however small, are noticed. They are the signs that antibodies and other immune components learn to read. The way an antibody binds to an antigen is often described through the metaphor of a lock and a key. The tips of the antibody's Y-shaped arms are the locks, shaped in countless subtle variations, while the antigens are the keys. When the right key appears, it fits into the lock, and the antibody attaches. This attachment is not random but specific, the result of an extraordinary diversity of antibodies produced by the body. Even before you encounter a new invader, your body already carries antibodies with the potential to recognize it. This is because B cells, which generate antibodies, shuffle and rearrange their genes in countless ways, producing a vast array of possible shapes. Out of this diversity arises preparedness. Somewhere within the millions of circulating antibodies, one may already hold the right shape to bind to the new antigen. When an antibody finally does meet its match, the binding itself can serve multiple purposes. At times, simply attaching to the antigen is enough to block its harmful function. A virus that relies on a spike protein to enter a cell may find its spike covered by antibodies, unable to continue its work. In other cases, the antibody acts as a marker, flagging the invader so that other immune cells can notice it. Macrophages, those patient eaters, are drawn to the marked invader and engulf it. Neutrophils, too, respond to these signals, removing what has been labeled. The act of recognition thus becomes not only a moment of identification but also a call to action, transforming an invisible intruder into something the immune system can clearly see. The process of recognition is not limited to antibodies alone. T cells, another class of lymphocytes, also play a crucial role. Unlike antibodies, which bind directly to antigens in circulation, T cells require that antigens be presented to them. Cells within the body, when infected by a virus, display fragments of that virus on their surface using MHC molecules. These displayed fragments are signals, warnings that the cell has been compromised. T cells patrol the body, scanning these displays, and when they encounter a fragment that does not belong, they respond. Helper T cells may release signals that stimulate other parts of the immune system, while cytotoxic T cells may gently induce the infected cell to self-destruct, preventing the virus from spreading. Recognition here is not only about binding but about interpretation, a conversation between cells that leads to coordinated action. The precision of recognition is vital, for without it, the immune system would risk confusion. If it were too careless, it might overlook harmful invaders. If it were too aggressive, it might mistake the body's own cells for foreign ones, leading to autoimmunity. The balance is delicate, yet in most people, it is maintained effortlessly. This balance is achieved through training. In the thymus, where T cells mature, they are tested to ensure that they do not attack self. Those that do are gently removed, leaving behind only those cells that can distinguish properly. Similarly, B cells are tested during their development, ensuring that the antibodies they might produce are directed outward rather than inward. The result of this training is a system that knows not only what to respond to but also what to leave alone. Even within this careful system, mistakes can occur. Sometimes the immune system does react to harmless substances, such as pollen or dust. In these cases, antibodies recognize proteins that pose no real danger, leading to allergic reactions. At other times, the immune system may fail to recognize an invader quickly enough, allowing infection to take hold. Yet these errors are exceptions, not the rule. For the most part, recognition works so smoothly that you remain unaware of its constant presence. Even now, as you rest, your body is quietly noticing, distinguishing, and responding, a silent vigilance that allows life to continue without disruption. Recognition also involves memory. Once an antibody has bound to an antigen, and once the immune system has mounted a response, the details of that antigen are stored. Memory B cells linger, carrying the blueprint for the antibody that matched so well. If the same invader returns, recognition is nearly instantaneous. Antibodies are produced more quickly and in greater numbers, and the infection may be cleared before you even notice symptoms. This memory is one of the greatest gifts of the immune system, turning past encounters into future protection. It is also the principle behind vaccination, where safe exposure to an antigen allows the body to create memory without suffering illness. To imagine the act of recognition, you might picture a calm library filled with countless books. Each book is an antibody, waiting quietly on its shelf. When a new visitor arrives, carrying a particular shape or pattern, the librarian knows exactly which book to open, and the answer is found. The process is orderly, precise, and efficient, yet it occurs without sound or interruption. The immune system's recognition is just like this, a vast archive of possibilities, always ready, always able to match what arrives with what is needed. As we consider this process, it is comforting to realize how much is handled without effort on your part. Recognition does not demand your awareness or your decision. It unfolds silently within you, a natural gift of your biology. Antibodies and T cells scan, notice, and respond, ensuring that the line between self and not self is maintained. This quiet separation is what allows you to remain whole, safe within your own body, while the outside world continues in all its complexity. The act of recognition is at once delicate and profound, a molecular embrace that ensures balance is preserved. And so, recognition forms the bridge between the passive barriers of the first line of defense and the active responses that follow. It is the moment when the immune system sees clearly, when an invader is no longer hidden but revealed. From this point, all the other processes of immunity flow. The production of antibodies in greater numbers, the signaling of cells, the clearance of infection, and the establishment of memory. It is the starting point of true adaptive defense, a calm and precise observation that transforms uncertainty into certainty, invisibility into clarity. 7. Neutralization and protection. Once antibodies have recognized an invader and attached themselves to its surface, a new stage in the immune response begins. This stage is not loud or chaotic, but rather a continuation of the same quiet theme. Subtle actions carried out with great effect. Recognition is only the first step, for it does not yet remove the invader or halt its harm. What follows is neutralization and protection, the process by which antibodies transform their simple act of binding into a shield that prevents damage and calls other guardians to complete the work. In this part of our exploration, we drift into the calm precision of this process, observing how antibodies turn recognition into true defense. Neutralization is perhaps the most elegant of all antibody functions. Many pathogens, whether viruses, bacteria, or toxins, require specific molecules to carry out their harmful work. A virus, for example, may need a protein on its surface to attach to a host cell. A toxin may rely on a particular chemical structure to bind to its target and disrupt its function. Antibodies interfere with these steps in the most straightforward way, by covering them. When an antibody binds to the part of a virus responsible for attaching to human cells, the virus is rendered helpless. It may still drift in the bloodstream, but it cannot enter the cells it seeks. Likewise, when a toxin is coated with antibodies, it loses its ability to interact with the molecules it was designed to disrupt. This act of neutralization is quiet but complete, blocking harm at its very source. The precision of neutralization makes it profoundly efficient. Unlike brute force, which relies on destroying an invader outright, neutralization simply prevents the invader from doing what it was designed to do. The virus remains intact, the toxin remains whole, but neither can function. They become inert, waiting to be cleared away. This efficiency is part of what makes antibodies such remarkable protectors. They do not need to overwhelm with strength. They only need to fit, like a key that jams the lock of a door, making it impossible to open. Beyond neutralization, antibodies serve as connectors between invaders and the larger immune system. When they bind to an antigen, their Y-shaped structure allows their constant region, the stem of the Y, to remain free. This constant region is recognized by other immune cells, such as macrophages and neutrophils. When these cells encounter an invader coated in antibodies, they are drawn to it. The antibodies act as flags, marking the intruder as foreign and inviting removal. The process is called opsonization, a word that means to make tasty. In a gentle sense, the antibody prepares the invader for engulfment, making it easier for phagocytic cells to surround and digest it. Without antibodies, invaders might slip by unnoticed, but with them, they stand out clearly, destined for removal. Antibodies also activate another system of protection known as the complement system. This is a collection of proteins that float silently in the blood, inactive until called upon. When antibodies bind to an invader, they can trigger the system, leading to a cascade of reactions. These reactions may create small pores in the surface of a bacterium, weakening it, or they may attract other immune cells to the site of infection. The complement system is like a hidden reserve of strength, always present, but only summoned when antibodies provide the signal. Together, antibodies and complement form a partnership that amplifies protection without disturbing the body's overall calm. It is worth remembering that not all antibodies act in the same way. Different classes are specialized for different environments. Immunoglobulin A, for instance, is especially important at mucosal surfaces such as the lungs and intestines. It prevents microbes from attaching to these sensitive tissues, neutralizing them before they can even begin to invade. Immunoglobulin G, the most abundant in the blood, excels at opsonization and activating complement, providing versatile protection throughout the body. Immunoglobulin M, with its large, pentameric shape, is particularly effective in the early stages of infection, binding strongly to invaders and signaling their presence. Each class of antibody contributes in its own quiet manner, ensuring that protection is comprehensive, spread across all the body's vulnerable surfaces. The concept of protection extends beyond the individual encounter. Once antibodies have bound, neutralized, and signaled for removal, the immune system begins the process of memory. Plasma cells, which produce antibodies in large numbers, eventually die, but memory B cells persist. These memory cells carry within them the blueprint for the antibodies that were so effective. If the same invader returns, these cells awaken, rapidly producing new antibodies in great quantities. The result is a response that is faster and stronger, often eliminating the threat before symptoms can even arise. This continuity of protection, from recognition to neutralization to memory, reflects the harmony of the immune system's design. Neutralization is not limited to microbes alone. It also applies to toxins produced by bacteria. Consider tetanus toxin, which interferes with nerve function. Antibodies can bind directly to the toxin, blocking its harmful effects. In fact, many vaccines work not by targeting the bacteria themselves, but by training the immune system to recognize their toxins. The body learns to produce antibodies that neutralize these dangerous molecules, transforming them into harmless fragments before they can cause damage. This subtle strategy demonstrates the versatility of antibodies, able to adapt their protective role to the unique challenges posed by different invaders. As we reflect on neutralization and protection, it is helpful to imagine antibodies as gentle hands, placing themselves over the tools of invaders and rendering them useless. They do not need to fight directly, they only need to prevent. Once prevention is achieved, the body's other systems can take over, clearing away what remains. This partnership between neutralization and removal is seamless, requiring no conscious thought, no deliberate effort. It unfolds quietly, continuously, and effectively, all while you go about the simple rhythm of living. The calmness of this process stands in contrast to the potential severity of infection without it. Without antibodies, invaders would attach freely, toxins would disrupt cells, and viruses would spread unchecked. The difference is not dramatic in the moment, for you do not feel antibodies binding or see them at work. Yet their presence changes everything. They transform vulnerability into resilience, exposure into safety. Their quiet action is what allows the body to remain whole in a world filled with microbes and molecules that might otherwise cause harm. Neutralization and protection are, in essence, the heart of the antibody's purpose. Recognition alone is not enough. The true gift of antibodies lies in their ability to transform recognition into safety, to extend a moment of binding into a cascade of protective events. In this way, they are not only identifiers but guardians, standing between the self and the outer world. They embody the immune system's philosophy of balance, precise, efficient, and subtle. As you rest and reflect, know that this process is happening within you even now. Antibodies are drifting, binding, neutralizing, and protecting, quietly ensuring that life continues undisturbed. Their work is invisible, but their presence is constant. They are the unseen keepers of peace, turning each encounter with the foreign into an opportunity for protection and memory. In their stillness and precision, they embody the harmony of the immune system, a harmony that allows you to live in safety within an ever-changing world. 8. Memory in the immune system. When we think about protection, we often imagine it as something immediate, a shield raised in the moment of danger, a wall that stands against an intruder. But the immune system adds another, gentler layer to this picture, the ability to remember. Memory in the immune system is one of its most extraordinary qualities, for it means that each encounter leaves behind a trace, a quiet note written into the body's story. With every infection or vaccination, the immune system learns, and what it learns is preserved, sometimes for decades. This memory ensures that the next time the same invader appears, the response will be swifter, stronger, and more precise. It is a form of learning without conscious thought, a silent intelligence that accompanies you through life. The process begins the first time the immune system encounters a new invader. The early response is slow compared to what comes later. The innate system provides its rapid but general defense, while the adaptive system takes time to study the details. B cells, with their vast diversity of possible antibodies, search for one that can bind effectively. T cells, trained to recognize fragments of foreign proteins, prepare to coordinate or directly attack. This first encounter can take days to develop into a full response, and during this time, symptoms may arise. Yet as the infection unfolds, the body learns. Specific B cells expand, producing large numbers of identical cells that all release the same antibody. Helper T cells direct the action, ensuring that every piece works in harmony. Cytotoxic T cells, if needed, quietly eliminate infected cells. And throughout this process, a record is being written. This record takes the form of memory cells. Some of the B cells and T cells produced during the initial response do not die when the infection ends. Instead, they remain, lingering quietly in the body for years, sometimes even for a lifetime. Memory B cells carry the blueprint for the antibody that worked so well against the invader. Memory T cells carry the ability to recognize the specific fragments of the antigen that once caused trouble. These cells do not remain in large numbers, nor do they act during times of peace, but they are always present, waiting in stillness for the moment they are needed again. When the same invader returns, the difference is profound. Instead of days, the response can begin within hours. Memory B cells quickly awaken, producing antibodies in great numbers. Memory T cells respond with precision, guiding the immune system as though it had been rehearsed many times before. Often, the infection is cleared before it causes noticeable illness. In some cases, you may not even realize you have been exposed because the memory response is so effective that symptoms never appear. This is what we mean when we speak of immunity. Not just the immediate defense, but the enduring memory that allows the body to respond with confidence to what it has seen before. The concept of immune memory also explains why certain diseases, once experienced, rarely return. Measles, for example, typically affects a person only once. After the initial infection, memory cells remain, ready to respond if the virus should appear again. The same is true for many other viral illnesses. In contrast, some pathogens, like influenza, change their surface proteins frequently, altering their appearance enough to evade recognition. In such cases, memory is still present, but the invader has disguised itself, requiring new responses and new antibodies. Even so, the principle remains. Once the immune system learns, it remembers, carrying that lesson into the future. Vaccination is built upon this principle. A vaccine introduces the body to an antigen in a safe form, perhaps a weakened virus, a fragment of protein, or even just genetic instructions that allow the body to make a harmless copy of the antigen. The immune system responds as though the invader were real, producing antibodies and generating memory cells. No illness follows, but the record remains. Later, when the actual pathogen appears, the memory cells awaken, and the response is swift. The body is protected not by chance but by preparation, a preparation quietly written into the immune system's memory. Memory in the immune system is not only about speed, but also about quality. With each exposure, antibodies become more precise. This refinement occurs through a process called affinity maturation, where B cells with slightly better fitting antibodies are selected over others. Over time, the antibodies produced bind more tightly to their targets, enhancing their effectiveness. In this way, memory is not static but dynamic, improving with practice. The immune system, like a careful student, does not merely recall but also refines, turning past experience into deeper knowledge. It is calming to think of memory in this way, as a library being quietly filled with volumes. Each infection or vaccination adds a new book to the shelves, a record of what was encountered and how best to respond. The library is not one you can visit, nor one you are even aware of, but it exists nonetheless, growing quietly as life continues. The immune system consults it when needed, turning to the right page, the right chapter, at exactly the right moment. The shelves are vast, capable of holding countless records, ensuring that you carry within you a map of past encounters that guides your future safety. Even when memory does not last forever, it often lingers long enough to provide years of protection. Some vaccines, like those for smallpox or yellow fever, generate memory that endures for decades. Others, like influenza vaccines, must be repeated because the virus changes its form. Yet in all cases, the principle remains the same. Memory cells extend the life of protection far beyond the immediate response. They bridge the gap between past and future, ensuring that what was once dangerous becomes familiar and manageable. There is also a deeper harmony in this memory, for it is not limited to the individual. When many people within a community carry immune memory against a pathogen, the pathogen finds it difficult to spread. Each immune individual is like a quiet barrier, stopping transmission, protecting not only themselves but also those around them. This shared protection is known as herd immunity, and it is one of the most profound expressions of immune memory on a collective scale. It transforms personal experience into community safety, weaving individual memories into a fabric of shared resilience. As you reflect on immune memory, imagine it as a gentle companion, always present, always ready. It does not speak, it does not announce itself, but it acts when needed, drawing upon the lessons of the past to safeguard the present. It is part of what allows life to continue smoothly, despite the countless microbes that exist in the world. Memory ensures that danger, once known, is no longer unknown, and that uncertainty, once faced, becomes a source of confidence. In its quiet persistence, immune memory represents the wisdom of the body, a wisdom written not in words but in cells and molecules, carried with you always, silently guarding your future. 9. The birth of vaccines. The story of vaccines is as much a tale of human curiosity and observation as it is of science. Long before we understood the immune system in detail, before the structure of antibodies was known, people noticed patterns in illness and recovery. They saw that those who had survived certain diseases rarely became sick with them again. They noticed that memory, though invisible, lingered within the body. From these early observations grew one of the most transformative practices in human history: the art of vaccination, a way of teaching the body to remember without suffering the full cost of disease. Centuries ago, smallpox was one of the most feared diseases in the world. It spread easily, left survivors scarred, and claimed countless lives. Yet amid this devastation, people observed something curious. Those who had endured smallpox once rarely fell ill with it again. The disease seemed to grant protection against itself. In parts of Asia, as early as the 10th century, healers experimented with ways of intentionally providing this protection. They practiced a method called variolation, in which small amounts of material from smallpox sores were introduced into healthy individuals, often through a scratch on the skin or by inhaling powdered scabs. The result was a milder form of the disease, followed by immunity. It was not without risk. Some did fall gravely ill, but for many, it provided lasting protection against a far more dangerous outbreak. This practice spread across cultures, from China to India, and later to the Ottoman Empire, where it drew the attention of Europeans in the 18th century. Travelers and physicians observed variolation and carried the idea back to their own countries. It was controversial, sometimes resisted, yet it marked the beginning of a profound shift, the realization that disease could be managed not only by treatment but by prevention. The immune system could be trained, and memory could be guided. The next great step in this story came with Edward Jenner, an English physician in the late 18th century. Jenner had heard stories from dairymaids who claimed they were protected from smallpox after contracting cowpox, a much milder disease that spread among cattle and sometimes to humans. Intrigued, Jenner studied the idea and conducted his now famous experiment in 1796. He took material from a cowpox sore on the hand of a milkmaid and introduced it into a young boy. The boy became mildly ill but soon recovered. Later, when Jenner exposed him to smallpox, the boy remained healthy. The protection was complete. This was the birth of the modern vaccine, though the word itself had not yet been coined. Jenner called the method vaccination, from vacca, the Latin word for cow, in honor of the source of the protective material. What made Jenner's work so remarkable was not just his observation but his vision. He recognized that one disease could provide protection against another, that immunity could be cultivated in a safe and deliberate way. Though he could not have known about antibodies or memory cells, he understood the principle. The body could be trained to remember through exposure to something less harmful. Over time, Jenner's discovery spread across the world. Vaccination against smallpox became a widespread practice, saving countless lives. The method was refined, and in the centuries that followed, the concept was extended to other diseases. Scientists learned to weaken or kill pathogens, to use fragments of them, or to find safer ways of presenting their antigens. Each advance built upon the same principle, that immunity could be guided and that memory could be shaped. The 19th century brought further progress. Louis Pasteur, the French scientist whose work laid the foundations of microbiology, extended the principles of vaccination to other diseases. Pasteur developed vaccines for rabies and anthrax, among others, showing that Jenner's idea was not limited to smallpox, but could be applied broadly. His work demonstrated that even when a disease was deadly, it could be approached with calm preparation, and that prevention was possible through science. With Pasteur, the word vaccine took on a broader meaning, encompassing not only cowpox but any method of training the immune system safely. By the 20th century, vaccination had become one of the central tools of public health. New vaccines were created for diphtheria, pertussis, polio, measles, mumps, rubella, and many more. Each vaccine was a quiet promise, offering immunity without illness, memory without suffering. As these vaccines spread through populations, once common diseases began to fade. Epidemics that had claimed thousands of lives diminished, and in some cases, disappeared. Smallpox itself, the disease that had begun the story, was declared eradicated in 1980 after a global vaccination campaign. It was the first human disease ever to be eliminated entirely, a triumph of memory harnessed through science. The birth of vaccines was not only a scientific achievement but also a human one. It required observation, courage, and a willingness to trust in the body's ability to learn. Early practices like variolation involved risk, yet they reflected a deep intuition about immunity. Jenner's cowpox experiment, while simple by today's standards, represented a profound leap forward in understanding. Pasteur's expansions demonstrated the universality of the principle. Together, these milestones laid the foundation for one of the most effective health interventions in history. It is calming to reflect on this story not as a tale of conflict, but as a tale of learning. Vaccination is, at its heart, an act of teaching. It introduces the immune system to a safe lesson, one that does not overwhelm but prepares. The body responds quietly, producing antibodies and memory cells, writing a record into its library of experience. Later, when the true disease appears, the body consults this memory and responds with ease. The person remains well, not by chance, but because of preparation. Vaccines are, in this sense, rehearsals for the immune system, gentle practices that ensure readiness. The story also reminds us of the harmony between human ingenuity and the body's natural wisdom. Scientists did not invent immunity, they discovered it. The body already knew how to remember. What Jenner, Pasteur, and others achieved was the realization that this natural ability could be guided. They found ways to present the immune system with the right lessons, in the right form, at the right time. Vaccination is thus a partnership, human understanding providing the opportunity, and the body's memory carrying it forward. Today, as we look back on the birth of vaccines, we see not only the history of smallpox or cowpox, but the beginning of a broader philosophy. It is the idea that health can be maintained not only through treatment after illness, but through prevention before illness. It is the recognition that memory, once understood, can be harnessed for protection. It is the quiet story of how humanity learned to walk alongside the immune system, guiding it gently, so that life might be lived with greater safety and peace. 10. How vaccines train the body. To understand how vaccines work, it helps to return to the gentle idea that the immune system is a student, always capable of learning and remembering. Just as a student prepares for challenges by studying in advance, so too does the immune system prepare for encounters with disease. But unlike a student reading books or listening to a teacher, the immune system learns through experience, through exposure to patterns of proteins and fragments of microbes that are unfamiliar. When a real infection occurs, the lesson is often harsh, demanding energy, causing illness, and sometimes bringing lasting harm. Vaccines transform this process into something safe, something rehearsed. They provide the body with the lesson without the suffering, allowing the immune system to practice in peace. At the heart of vaccination lies the principle of mimicry. A vaccine does not cause the full disease, but presents the immune system with something that resembles it closely enough to be recognized. This might be a weakened version of a virus that cannot cause serious harm, or it might be a fragment of a bacterium, just enough for the immune system to notice. In newer forms of vaccines, it may even be genetic instructions that allow the body's own cells to make harmless pieces of the invader for a short time. In every case, the goal is the same: to show the immune system the shape of the threat, to let it study the details, and to write those details into memory. When the vaccine is introduced, the immune system begins to respond as though the invader were real. Cells of the innate system notice the foreign material and send signals. Macrophages may engulf the fragments and present them to helper T cells. These helper T cells then guide B cells to produce antibodies. Plasma cells arise, releasing large numbers of antibodies into the bloodstream, while memory cells form, storing the blueprint for the future. The process is calm, deliberate, and orderly. There may be mild signs of this activity, a bit of soreness, a touch of fever as the body quietly rehearses its defense. Yet compared to a true infection, these effects are gentle, passing quickly as the immune system completes its training. The training provided by a vaccine is not superficial. The immune system does not simply glance at the antigen and forget it. Instead, it refines its response, selecting the B cells and antibodies that fit best. With time, the match becomes more precise, ensuring that if the real pathogen appears, the antibodies produced will bind tightly, neutralizing it before it can cause illness. This process of refinement, called affinity maturation, is part of what makes vaccine-induced immunity so effective. It is not just practice, but practice that improves with each repetition. Different vaccines offer this lesson in different ways. Some use live but weakened forms of the pathogen. These live, attenuated vaccines are close enough to the original that the immune response is strong and lasting, but they are mild enough that they do not cause serious disease. Others use inactivated forms, killed microbes that cannot replicate but still carry the antigens needed for recognition. Subunit vaccines go further, using only specific parts of the pathogen, often proteins or sugars, focusing the immune system's attention on the most important details. Newer technologies, like mRNA vaccines, provide only the instructions for making a harmless protein. The body's own cells briefly produce the protein, the immune system recognizes it, and memory is formed. Each method is different, but the principle is always the same: exposure without illness, practice without risk. The training effect of vaccines is cumulative. For some diseases, a single dose is enough to create long-lasting immunity. For others, multiple doses are needed, each one reminding the immune system, strengthening its memory, and enhancing its precision. These repeated lessons are known as boosters, and they serve to ensure that the memory does not fade. Like a student reviewing notes before an exam, the immune system benefits from gentle reminders. Each booster refreshes the record, keeping the details vivid and ensuring readiness. What is remarkable about vaccine training is that it extends protection beyond the individual. When many people are vaccinated, the pathogen finds it harder to spread. Each vaccinated person becomes a quiet barrier, preventing the chain of transmission. Even those who cannot receive the vaccine, whether because of age, illness, or other reasons, gain protection through this network of immunity. The training of one body contributes to the safety of many, weaving a fabric of defense that stretches across whole communities. This effect, called herd immunity, is one of the most powerful expressions of vaccine-induced training. It is also important to remember that vaccines do not overwhelm the immune system. The human body is exposed to countless antigens every day through food, air, and the environment. The small amount provided by a vaccine is tiny compared to this natural exposure. The immune system is designed for recognition, for memory, for adaptation. Vaccines simply guide it, pointing out what is important, allowing it to prepare in advance. The training is gentle but effective, aligning with the immune system's natural abilities rather than working against them. The benefits of this training are seen most clearly in the disappearance of diseases that once were common. Polio, which once caused widespread paralysis, has been reduced to only a handful of cases worldwide, thanks to vaccination. Measles, once a near-universal childhood illness, can be prevented with a simple dose. Smallpox, the scourge that inspired the first vaccine, no longer exists in nature. Its memory preserved only in laboratories. Each of these successes is a testament to the immune system's ability to learn and the quiet power of training through vaccines. As you reflect on how vaccines train the body, it may be comforting to think of it as a kind of rehearsal. Just as an orchestra practices quietly before performing, so too does the immune system practice before facing the real challenge. The practice is safe, the setting controlled, but the preparation is genuine. Later, when the performance comes, when the pathogen appears, the immune system is ready, confident, and capable. The music flows without hesitation, and the body remains in harmony. This training is a gift not only from science, but from the body itself. Vaccines work because the immune system is already capable of learning. They succeed because the body remembers, refines, and prepares. Human ingenuity provides the lesson, but the immune system does the learning. It is a partnership between knowledge and biology, a collaboration that has transformed health across the world. In the end, vaccines are not an intrusion, but an invitation. They invite the immune system to learn without suffering, to prepare without harm, to remember without pain. They are teachers that speak in the language of antigens, guiding the body toward resilience. Through them, memory is cultivated, protection is extended, and peace is preserved. And as you rest, it is reassuring to know that your immune system carries within it the lessons of these gentle teachers, always ready to protect you with the wisdom it has gained. 11. Types of traditional vaccines. When speaking of vaccines, it is calming to remember that they are not all alike, though their purpose is always the same: to train the immune system gently, preparing it to recognize and respond without the need for illness. The different kinds of vaccines reflect the many ways in which scientists have found to present the immune system with a safe lesson. Some are older, time-tested approaches that have been used for generations, while others represent newer ideas that still carry the same underlying principle. Traditional vaccines, the earliest and most widely used, fall into several categories: live attenuated, inactivated, and subunit vaccines. Each of these works in its own way, but all share the quiet aim of giving the immune system a rehearsal rather than a true battle. Live attenuated vaccines are among the oldest forms. In these vaccines, the pathogen is still alive, but has been weakened so that it no longer causes severe disease. Scientists achieve this by growing the virus or bacterium under conditions that reduce its harmfulness. Over time, it adapts to those conditions, losing its ability to thrive in the human body while retaining the antigens that the immune system can recognize. When introduced into a person, it may cause a mild response, but it cannot unleash the full illness. The immune system, however, does not know the difference. It sees the antigens, responds, and creates memory. The result is strong and often long-lasting immunity, as though the body had faced the real invader, but without the risks that such an encounter would bring. Examples of live attenuated vaccines include those for measles, mumps, rubella, and chickenpox. These vaccines have been used for decades, protecting millions of children and adults worldwide. Because they are so similar to the natural infection, the memory they produce can last for many years, sometimes even a lifetime. Yet live attenuated vaccines do require care. They cannot be given to people whose immune systems are weakened, since even the gentlest form of a pathogen might pose a risk in those cases. They also need to be stored carefully, often requiring refrigeration to keep the weakened organisms alive. These considerations remind us that while live vaccines are powerful teachers, they must be handled with respect and care. In contrast, inactivated vaccines use pathogens that have been killed. The bacteria or viruses are grown in the laboratory and then treated, often with heat or chemicals, so that they can no longer replicate. They are lifeless, incapable of causing disease, yet their antigens remain intact, still recognizable to the immune system. When injected, these antigens trigger the same process of recognition and memory as a live vaccine, but without any risk of infection. The response is generally less strong than with live vaccines, so booster doses are often needed to maintain protection. Still, inactivated vaccines are safe and effective, making them a cornerstone of immunization programs around the world. Polio is one of the most famous examples of an inactivated vaccine, developed by Jonas Salk in the 1950 seconds. The inactivated polio vaccine provided immunity against a disease that once paralyzed thousands of children every year. Today, polio has been driven to the brink of eradication, thanks largely to vaccination. Other inactivated vaccines include those for hepatitis A, rabies, and influenza. Each of these has saved countless lives, quietly strengthening the immune system's memory against some of the world's most dangerous infections. A third traditional category is subunit vaccines. These do not use the whole pathogen at all, whether alive or dead, but instead focus on particular parts of it. Scientists identify the pieces of a bacterium or virus that are most important for recognition, often proteins or sugars on the surface, and use only those in the vaccine. The immune system is shown a fragment of the invader, enough to recognize and remember, without any risk of encountering the full pathogen. Because subunit vaccines are so focused, they are often combined with adjuvants, substances that help stimulate the immune system to respond more strongly. Examples of subunit vaccines include those against hepatitis B and human papillomavirus. Both of these vaccines have proven remarkably effective, not only preventing infection, but also protecting against diseases that these viruses can cause later in life, such as cancer. The success of subunit vaccines demonstrates the immune system's ability to learn from even the smallest lesson, remembering a single protein well enough to recognize the entire virus should it ever appear. Another traditional form worth mentioning is the toxoid vaccine. Some bacteria do not cause disease primarily by their presence, but by releasing toxins that harm the body. Tetanus and diphtheria are two such illnesses. In these cases, scientists create vaccines not from the bacteria themselves, but from inactivated toxins, known as toxoids. These toxoids are harmless, but they resemble the active toxins closely enough to train the immune system. When the real toxin is encountered, antibodies bind and neutralize it, preventing harm. The tetanus vaccine and the diphtheria vaccine are both examples of this approach, and they have saved countless lives, turning once feared diseases into rare events. All of these traditional vaccines live attenuated, inactivated, subunit, and toxoid, share the same quiet philosophy. They provide the immune system with a safe rehearsal, a practice run that leaves behind memory, Each approach has its strengths and considerations. Live vaccines provide strong, lasting immunity but require careful use. Inactivated vaccines are safe for nearly everyone but may need repeated doses. Subunit vaccines are precise but often require the help of adjuvants. Toxoid vaccines focus not on the pathogen but on its weapon, disarming it before it can cause harm. Together, they form a rich set of tools, each contributing to the broader effort of protecting human health. It is soothing to reflect on how these vaccines represent a partnership between nature and science. The immune system's natural ability to remember and protect was already present. What scientists did was find ways to introduce the right lessons safely, guiding the immune system toward the knowledge it would need most. Each vaccine is like a gentle teacher, presenting information in a way that avoids danger while still ensuring that the lesson is learned. The history of traditional vaccines is a history of progress in quiet steps, from Jenner's cowpox experiment to Pasteur's rabies vaccine, to the creation of polio and measles vaccines in the 20th century. Each advance built upon the last. Together, they transformed the landscape of human health. Diseases that once shaped entire societies, causing fear and loss, became preventable, fading into the background of history. The immune system had always been capable of memory, but vaccines gave that memory direction, focus, and purpose. As you consider the types of traditional vaccines, it is calming to see them not as complicated scientific tools, but as simple, thoughtful gifts. Each one is a way of offering the immune system a rehearsal, a chance to practice in safety. Each one is a quiet preparation, ensuring that when the real moment comes, the body is ready. And as these lessons accumulate across individuals and communities, the world itself becomes a safer, more peaceful place. 12. Modern vaccine innovations. The story of vaccines, while rooted in tradition and centuries of careful observation, has never been static. It has continued to evolve, shaped by new discoveries about the immune system and by advances in technology. Just as the immune system itself adapts and learns, so too has humanity learned to refine the ways in which we guide it. Modern vaccine innovations represent a continuation of the same quiet philosophy, preparing the body safely, teaching it without harm, but they do so with tools that are more precise, more flexible, and often more efficient than those of the past. These newer approaches include vector-based vaccines, mRNA vaccines, DNA vaccines, and other novel platforms that expand the possibilities of what immunization can achieve. Each is built upon the calm foundation of memory and recognition, yet each brings something new to the art of prevention. Among the most widely discussed modern innovations are mRNA vaccines. Messenger RNA, or mRNA, is a natural molecule in the body, a kind of temporary instruction sheet that cells use to make proteins. Scientists realized that this process could be harnessed to train the immune system. Instead of delivering a weakened or inactivated pathogen, an mRNA vaccine provides the genetic instructions for a harmless piece of the pathogen, often a protein found on its surface. The body's own cells read the instructions and briefly produce the protein. The immune system notices this foreign presence, responds by producing antibodies, and writes the details into memory. The protein itself cannot cause illness, for it is only a fragment, but it is enough to give the immune system a full lesson. What makes mRNA vaccines remarkable is their speed and flexibility. Traditional vaccines may take years to develop, requiring scientists to grow viruses or purify proteins. With mRNA, once the genetic code of a pathogen is known, instructions for its proteins can be designed quickly. This means that vaccines can be developed with unprecedented speed, a quality that proved invaluable during the emergence of new global threats. In addition, mRNA vaccines do not use live components, making them safe, even for many individuals who might be vulnerable to traditional live vaccines. The technology is young, yet it has already shown its ability to transform the landscape of immunization. Closely related are DNA vaccines, which work in a similar way but use DNA rather than RNA as the source of instructions. A small piece of DNA is introduced into the body, often carried on a circular structure called a plasmid. The DNA enters cells, where it is transcribed into mRNA and then into protein, which the immune system recognizes. DNA vaccines have the advantage of stability, often being easier to store and transport than mRNA. While fewer DNA vaccines have reached widespread use in humans so far, the concept is promising, and research continues to explore its potential for a wide range of diseases. Another modern approach is the use of viral vectors. In this method, scientists take a harmless virus and use it as a delivery vehicle to carry genetic material from another pathogen. The harmless virus enters cells, as it naturally would, and delivers the instructions for making the foreign protein. The immune system responds to the protein, creating antibodies and memory. The delivery virus cannot cause illness because it has been modified, yet it provides a natural and effective way of presenting antigens to the immune system. This method has been used for vaccines against diseases such as Ebola, and it represents a bridge between traditional and modern ideas, still using viral structures, but in a way that is safe and precisely controlled. Protein-based vaccines remain a part of the modern landscape as well, but they are now often produced through recombinant technology. Instead of extracting proteins directly from pathogens, scientists use genetic engineering to insert the gene for the protein into yeast or other safe organisms. These organisms then produce the protein in large quantities, which can be purified and used in vaccines. This approach allows for great precision and safety, ensuring that only the necessary part of the pathogen is used, without the need to handle dangerous live microbes. The hepatitis B vaccine, long produced in this way, remains a prime example of the success of recombinant technology. Modern vaccine innovations also extend beyond the individual components to include adjuvant substances added to vaccines to enhance the immune response. Adjuvants act as gentle stimulants, encouraging the immune system to pay closer attention to the antigen presented. They may mimic natural signals of infection, prompting immune cells to respond more vigorously. While the antigen provides the lesson, the adjuvant ensures that the lesson is remembered more clearly. This partnership between antigen and adjuvant has allowed vaccines to be effective, even when using only small fragments of pathogens. These innovations are not only technical achievements but also reflections of the same principle that guided Jenner and Pasteur. The immune system can learn, and it can be taught safely. What has changed is the method of teaching. Instead of introducing the whole pathogen, scientists now provide only what is necessary. Instead of relying solely on time-consuming growth in laboratories, they use the language of genes, the codes of RNA and DNA, to deliver the lesson. Instead of depending on chance observations, they design vaccines with precision, choosing exactly which parts of the pathogen will be most effective for recognition. The benefits of modern vaccines are many. They can be developed more quickly, an important feature in a world where new diseases may appear unexpectedly. They can be tailored to specific populations, or even designed to target multiple pathogens at once. They often have fewer side effects, because they present only the essential parts of the pathogen. They open the possibility of targeting diseases that have so far eluded traditional vaccination, including some forms of cancer. The horizon of vaccine science has expanded, and with it, the quiet promise of protection has grown broader and more accessible. Yet amid these innovations, the essence remains unchanged. Whether the vaccine is live, inactivated, subunit, vector-based, or mRNA, the goal is always to present the immune system with a safe rehearsal. The immune system responds, memory is formed, and protection endures. The form of the lesson may differ, but the student, the immune system remains the same, always ready to learn, always capable of remembering. It is soothing to reflect on this continuity. Vaccines, whether traditional or modern, are variations on the same theme. Guiding the body's natural wisdom, the immune system has always been able to distinguish, to remember, to protect. What humanity has contributed is the ability to offer the right lessons at the right time. Each new innovation is not a departure from the past, but a refinement, another way of speaking the language of immunity more clearly. As you rest with this thought, imagine the immune system as a student sitting quietly, attentive, ready to learn. Traditional vaccines were the first teachers, showing the basics of recognition. Modern vaccines are new teachers, bringing clearer examples, more efficient lessons, and a wider range of subjects. Yet the classroom is the same, the student is the same, and the purpose is unchanged: to prepare, to remember, to protect. This is the calm continuity of vaccine innovation, a story of progress that remains grounded in the same timeless principle of memory and defense. 13. The cycle of immunity after vaccination. When we think about vaccines, it is easy to imagine them as a single moment, a small injection, a dose swallowed, a patch applied, and then the matter is complete. Yet what follows is not a single event, but a calm unfolding, a cycle that moves through recognition, response, memory, and protection. This cycle begins the moment the vaccine enters the body. But it does not end there. It continues silently for days, weeks, months, and sometimes years, as the immune system maintains what it has learned and prepares to use that knowledge again when needed. To understand this cycle is to understand how the simple act of vaccination leads to lasting safety. The first step in the cycle begins at the point of entry. A vaccine delivers its antigens into the body, whether as a weakened organism, an inactivated one, a protein fragment, or a genetic instruction. Almost immediately, the innate immune system notices that something unusual has arrived. Cells at the site of injection send out signals, summoning white blood cells. Macrophages may engulf fragments, neutrophils may arrive, and dendritic cells, specialized in presentation, take up the antigens and prepare to carry them to the lymph nodes. Though you do not feel it directly, this is the beginning of the rehearsal, the moment when the immune system first becomes aware of the lesson it is being offered. As the antigens are carried to the lymph nodes, the second step of the cycle begins. Recognition. Within the lymph nodes, B cells and T cells reside, each waiting for the signal that matches their unique receptors. When a dendritic cell presents a piece of the antigen to a helper T cell, recognition occurs. The T cell understands that this fragment is foreign, and it begins to respond. It communicates with B cells, guiding them to produce antibodies. The B cells that match the antigen are activated, dividing rapidly and transforming into plasma cells. These plasma cells release large numbers of antibodies into the bloodstream, each one designed to bind to the antigen. In this way, recognition is transformed into response, the immune system actively producing the tools it will need for defense. This response often brings with it subtle signs. The site of vaccination may feel warm or sore, a reminder that immune cells are active there. A mild fever may arise, a sign that the body is adjusting its environment to make it less welcoming to potential invaders. These sensations are not illness but practice, the body engaging in its training. They pass quickly, leaving behind no harm, only the assurance that the immune system has noticed and has begun its work. As antibodies circulate, they bind to the antigens, neutralizing them and marking them for clearance. The body removes the remnants of the vaccine, just as it would an actual pathogen. Yet the lesson does not end with removal. This is where the cycle turns to its most enduring stage, memory. Among the B cells and T cells that were activated, some do not vanish. They remain as memory cells, carrying within them the blueprint for what was just encountered. These memory cells are like books written during the rehearsal, stored on the shelves of the immune system's quiet library. They will not act immediately, but they will wait, sometimes for decades, ready to awaken if the true invader ever appears. The next time the pathogen is encountered, the cycle moves much more quickly. Memory B cells produce antibodies almost immediately, flooding the bloodstream with defenders that bind and neutralize the intruder before it can spread. Memory T cells respond as well, coordinating the defense with precision. Instead of days of waiting, the response unfolds within hours. The infection may be cleared so quickly that no symptoms arise at all. The person remains healthy, not because the pathogen was absent, but because the immune system's memory was present and ready. This cycle is strengthened by repetition. For some vaccines, one lesson is enough to create lasting memory. For others, booster doses are given, each one reminding the immune system of the details. The booster reawakens memory cells, prompting them to divide and refresh their numbers. It strengthens the precision of antibodies, ensuring that they fit more tightly to their targets. It lengthens the duration of protection, extending immunity far into the future. Each booster is not a new cycle, but a continuation of the same one, reinforcing the lesson until it is deeply embedded. It is worth noting that the cycle of immunity after vaccination mirrors the cycle that occurs after natural infection. In both cases, the body encounters antigens, responds with antibodies and cells, and builds memory. The difference is that vaccination offers the cycle without the risks of illness. Instead of enduring the fever, the fatigue, or the dangers of the real disease, the body practices in safety. The immune system cannot tell the difference between an antigen from a vaccine and one from a pathogen. It responds the same way, but the absence of harm allows the lesson to be learned without cost. The calm persistence of this cycle is one of its most reassuring qualities. Once established, memory requires little effort to maintain. The cells linger quietly, some dividing slowly to keep their numbers stable, others resting until called upon. They do not disturb daily life, and they do not interfere with other processes. They are simply present, a silent reserve of knowledge, waiting for the moment they are needed. In this way, the immune system carries with it the lessons of the past, always ready to transform them into protection for the future. On a broader scale, the cycle of immunity after vaccination extends beyond the individual. When many people carry immune memory against the same pathogen, the pathogen finds fewer opportunities to spread. Each immune person breaks the chain of transmission, indirectly protecting those who are unvaccinated or vulnerable. The cycle of immunity thus becomes a cycle of community safety, memory woven not just into individuals but into entire populations. This is the essence of herd immunity, the collective shield that arises when many have been trained. It is calming to see this cycle not as a battle but as a rhythm, a natural flow from exposure to recognition, from response to memory. Each step is quiet, each step builds upon the last, and the result is harmony. The immune system is not forced but guided, not burdened but prepared. Vaccination does not create something unnatural. It simply provides the opportunity for the immune system to do what it is already capable of doing, to learn, to remember, and to protect. As you reflect on this cycle, you might imagine it as a gentle circle, always turning. At one point, antigens are introduced. At another, recognition takes place. Then antibodies are produced. Then memory is formed. And finally, protection endures. When the cycle turns again, memory awakens, and the process repeats, faster and stronger. The circle is unbroken, a quiet continuity that carries you safely forward. This is the true gift of vaccination. Not only immediate protection, but the enduring cycle of immunity that remains with you, invisible yet always present. always ready to safeguard your health. 14. Herd immunity. Community protection. When we speak of immunity, we often think of it as something that belongs to the individual, the quiet memory carried by one person's immune system, the protection built from antibodies and memory cells that stand guard within a single body. Yet immunity is not only a personal shield, it is also a shared gift. When many people within a community are immune to the same disease, whether through natural recovery or vaccination, they create a kind of invisible barrier that extends far beyond themselves. This collective protection is known as herd immunity, and it represents one of the most powerful ways in which the immune system's lessons are magnified across entire populations. Herd immunity is not loud or obvious. It is a silent web of safety that spreads from person to person, until even those who cannot protect themselves are sheltered by the strength of those around them. The principle of herd immunity is simple but profound. Many diseases spread through contact, whether by droplets in the air, by touch, or by contaminated food and water. For a pathogen to move through a population, it must find new hosts, individuals who are not immune. Each time an infected person meets someone susceptible, the disease has the chance to pass on, and in this way, outbreaks grow. But when enough people are immune, the chain of transmission is broken. The pathogen may still appear, but it cannot spread far, because most of the people it encounters are already protected. The result is that the disease fades quietly, unable to find new footholds. This protection is especially important for those who cannot be vaccinated or who do not respond strongly to vaccines. Infants too young to receive certain immunizations, elderly individuals with weakened immune systems, and people with specific medical conditions may be vulnerable. For them, herd immunity is not just a concept but a lifeline. It means that even without their own shield, they are surrounded by others who carry one for them. When a disease cannot move freely through a community, it cannot reach those most at risk. In this way, herd immunity transforms personal memory into collective safety, weaving together the protection of many into a shelter for all. The level of immunity required to create this effect depends on the disease. Some pathogens spread easily, needing only brief contact to pass from one person to another. Measles is one of the most contagious examples. A single infected person can spread it to many others. For measles, herd immunity requires a very high level of protection, with nearly everyone in a community immune, often more than 95%. Other diseases spread less efficiently and require a lower threshold of immunity. Regardless of the exact number, the principle remains constant. When enough people are immune, the disease cannot maintain itself, and outbreaks decline. History offers clear examples of herd immunity at work. Before the measles vaccine was introduced, nearly every child experienced the illness, and outbreaks were common. Once vaccination became widespread, cases dropped dramatically, not only among those who were vaccinated but also among those who were not, because the disease could no longer find enough hosts to thrive. The same pattern has been observed with polio, diphtheria, and many other infections. Each time, the community as a whole benefited from the immunity of individuals, and the burden of disease diminished. Herd immunity has even achieved what once seemed impossible: the eradication of a disease. Smallpox, which plagued humanity for centuries, was declared eradicated in 1980 after a global vaccination effort. This was possible because vaccination created a level of immunity so high that the virus had nowhere left to spread. With no susceptible hosts remaining, the virus disappeared from the natural world. This remains one of the greatest achievements of medicine, a triumph not only of science but also of shared protection. It demonstrated that, when immunity is spread widely enough, diseases can vanish entirely, leaving only the memory of their existence. It is calming to reflect on herd immunity as a gentle ripple effect. When one person is vaccinated, they protect themselves, but they also create a small zone of safety around them. When many people are vaccinated, these zones overlap, forming a wide and continuous shield. The protection spreads outward, reaching those who might otherwise be vulnerable. In this way, the act of one person receiving a vaccine becomes more than a personal choice. It becomes part of a collective effort that nurtures the safety of all. Herd immunity also highlights the deep connection between individual health and community well-being. The immune system is personal, operating within a single body, but its effects extend beyond. When you carry immune memory, you not only guard yourself but also reduce the chance of passing illness to others. Your antibodies, your memory cells, your quiet protection, all of these become part of the larger fabric of safety that surrounds those around you. In this sense, immunity is both individual and shared, a reminder that human health is always intertwined. There are challenges, of course. If too few people in a community are immune, herd immunity cannot be established, and outbreaks can return. Diseases like measles, once nearly eliminated in many regions, have reappeared when vaccination rates dropped. These resurgences show how delicate the balance can be, and how much herd immunity depends on the continued participation of many. Yet even in these challenges, the principle of herd immunity remains clear. It is not an abstract idea but a real and measurable effect, one that determines whether diseases fade into history or return to disrupt lives. As you think about herd immunity, imagine it as a circle of protection, wide and encompassing. Each immune person adds another link, strengthening the circle, making it harder for illness to pass through. For those at the center, infants, the elderly, the medically fragile, this circle is their shelter, their quiet safeguard against a world filled with invisible threats. The circle does not depend on any single person alone, but on the collective presence of many, each carrying their own shield of memory. Together, they create a barrier far stronger than any individual could provide. Ultimately, herd immunity is a reflection of the same principles that guide the immune system itself: recognition, memory, and cooperation. Within the body, immune cells communicate and coordinate, ensuring that the response is balanced and effective. Within a community, individuals do the same, their shared immunity, creating a response that extends beyond themselves. Both levels, personal and communal, demonstrate the harmony that arises when memory is used wisely, when protection is extended not only inward but outward. And so, herd immunity is more than a medical term. It is a quiet promise, a reminder that health is not only individual, but shared. It is the invisible web that connects one person's antibodies to another's safety, one child's vaccination to another's protection, one memory to 1,000 futures. As you rest, it is comforting to know that this web exists, woven silently through communities, carrying within it the strength of many and offering peace to all. 15. Boosters and waning immunity. Immunity, once formed, may seem like something permanent, a memory that endures unchanged for the rest of a lifetime. And in some cases, this is true. Certain diseases, once encountered, leave behind protection so deep that the body remembers them forever. Smallpox is one such example, and measles too can leave lasting memory that rarely fades. Yet not all immunity is so enduring. For some infections, the immune memory gently wanes over time, fading like the soft imprint of writing on paper that grows fainter with age. This gradual decline does not mean the immune system forgets entirely, but it does mean that protection may become less certain. To renew the memory, to refresh the lesson, vaccines are sometimes given again. These additional doses are called boosters, and they are a quiet way of reminding the immune system of what it once learned, ensuring that the knowledge remains clear and strong. The reason immunity wanes has to do with the natural rhythms of the immune system. When a vaccine or infection first stimulates a response, B cells divide and produce antibodies. Some of these B cells become memory cells, lingering for years, but others eventually fade. The antibodies themselves, once abundant in the bloodstream, gradually decline as the plasma cells that produce them die. Over time, the level of antibodies may fall below the threshold needed to prevent infection. Memory cells may still exist, but their numbers may not be enough to mount a rapid response. The result is that the body is still prepared, but its readiness is slower, and the window for illness to develop is wider. Boosters close this window by reawakening the immune system. When a booster dose of vaccine is given, the immune system responds as though the pathogen has returned. Memory B cells quickly produce antibodies, and new plasma cells are formed, flooding the bloodstream with protection once more. At the same time, memory cells are replenished, ensuring that the record of the antigen is not only preserved, but refreshed. Each booster strengthens the memory, like tracing over faded lines in a book, so that the words remain clear. Not all vaccines require boosters. The smallpox vaccine, for example, was given only once in most cases, yet it provided lifelong protection. The yellow fever vaccine is another that can last for decades with a single dose. But others, such as tetanus, diphtheria, and pertussis, require repeated doses every 10 years or so. Influenza requires yearly vaccination, not because memory fades so quickly, but because the virus itself changes, altering its surface proteins, so that the immune system no longer recognizes it fully. Hepatitis B and polio fall somewhere in between, requiring a series of initial doses, followed by occasional boosters to ensure lasting immunity. The need for boosters reflects the complexity of the immune system's interactions with pathogens. Some invaders leave a strong impression, training the immune system so thoroughly that it never forgets. Others leave only a partial record, or they change so often that memory is less useful. In these cases, the booster acts as a gentle nudge, a way of reminding the body of details it might otherwise allow to grow faint. It is not a failure of immunity, but a natural aspect of its rhythm, a reminder that memory, like all things, benefits from renewal. The experience of receiving a booster is often similar to that of the initial vaccine. The body responds with recognition, producing antibodies, refreshing memory, and sometimes bringing with it mild signs of this activity, soreness, warmth, or brief fatigue. These are signs of practice, not illness, evidence that the immune system is once again rehearsing the lesson it has learned. The booster dose does not replace the original memory but strengthens it, layering new lines over the old, ensuring that recognition remains sharp. There is a deeper comfort in understanding boosters, for they show that immunity is not static but dynamic. The immune system is always adjusting, responding to the world as it changes. Pathogens evolve, memory cells age, antibody levels rise and fall. The booster is part of this living rhythm, a gentle partnership between human knowledge and biological adaptation. It is a way of aligning the immune system's natural cycles with the needs of long-term protection. It is also worth noting that boosters contribute to herd immunity in the same way as primary vaccines. When many individuals renew their protection, the collective shield of the community remains strong. If boosters were neglected, immunity might fade across the population, leaving openings for outbreaks to reappear. By refreshing memory, boosters ensure that the web of community protection remains intact, safeguarding not only individuals, but also those who depend on the immunity of others. The concept of waning immunity is not one of loss, but of balance. The immune system does not forget entirely, but it allows certain memories to rest more lightly when they are not often needed. This makes sense when we consider that the immune system must remember countless details across a lifetime. Not every memory can remain at the forefront. Some must fade gently into the background. ready to be called forward if necessary, but not maintained at full strength at all times. Boosters bring those memories back into focus, ensuring that they are once again sharp and ready. In the quiet story of immunity, boosters are like gentle reminders whispered to the body. They do not start from the beginning, but pick up where the lesson left off. They remind the immune system of what it already knows, of the shapes and patterns it once recognized, of the antigens that once drew its attention. With each reminder, the memory deepens, becoming not weaker but stronger, not faded but reinforced. As you reflect on this cycle of waning and renewal, it is calming to see it not as fragility but as flexibility. The immune system, like memory itself, has its own rhythms of fading and remembering. Vaccines and boosters work in harmony with these rhythms, guiding them gently, ensuring that protection endures across the years. They are part of the natural conversation between biology and science, between the body's wisdom and humanity's understanding. And so, boosters are not interruptions but continuations. They are quiet reminders that memory must sometimes be refreshed, that knowledge must sometimes be revisited, that safety is built not in a single moment, but in an ongoing rhythm of learning and remembering. Just as we revisit books, songs, or lessons in life to keep them close to us, so too does the immune system benefit from gentle reminders. In this way, boosters help maintain the harmony of protection, ensuring that immunity remains strong, clear, and ready for the future. 16. Natural infection versus vaccination. Immunity is always the story of learning. The immune system does not emerge already knowing the shapes and patterns of every virus, bacterium, or toxin in the world. Instead, it must be introduced to them, it must study them, and it must build memory from those encounters. There are two main ways in which this learning can take place. One is through natural infection, when the body meets a pathogen directly and responds to the illness it causes. The other is through vaccination, when the body is shown the same patterns in a safe and controlled way. Both paths lead to memory, but the journeys are different, and the outcomes carry very different meanings for health and safety. To compare them is to see two sides of the same principle, immunity formed through experience, but with sharply contrasting costs. When natural infection occurs, the body meets the full force of the pathogen. A virus enters, replicates, and spreads through cells. A bacterium multiplies, releasing toxins or damaging tissues. The immune system responds with all its layers, innate defenders rushing to the site, antibodies being produced, memory cells forming for the future. By the end of the illness, if the person recovers, the immune system has indeed learned. The memory is strong, the antibodies are precise, and protection against the same invader may last for many years, sometimes even a lifetime. Natural infection, then, does provide immunity, but it is a harsh teacher. The lesson comes at the cost of illness, and sometimes that cost is too great. Diseases like measles, polio, and smallpox left scars on history not only because they spread so easily, but also because of the suffering they inflicted. Measles, while often survivable, could cause complications such as pneumonia or encephalitis. Polio could leave permanent paralysis. Smallpox scarred faces, blinded eyes, and claimed lives. Each of these diseases created strong immune memory in those who survived, but the cost of gaining that memory was high. It meant enduring the disease in full, risking complications, and sometimes losing life. To rely on natural infection for immunity is to accept suffering as the price of learning, and history shows how devastating that price has been. Vaccination offers the same lesson, but without the suffering. Instead of exposing the body to the full force of the pathogen, vaccines introduce only what is necessary for recognition. The immune system sees the antigens, the proteins or fragments that mark the invader, and responds as though a real infection had occurred. Antibodies are produced, memory cells are formed, and protection is established. The difference is that no disease takes hold. There is no pneumonia, no paralysis, no blindness, no loss of life. The immune system gains the memory it needs without enduring the dangers that come with natural infection. The lesson is the same, but the cost is gentle rather than harsh. One way to picture this difference is to imagine two classrooms. In one, the teacher forces the students to learn through painful trial, giving them dangerous tasks that leave some injured and others unable to continue. Those who succeed learn well, but many pay a heavy price. In the other classroom, the teacher uses careful exercises, safe practices that guide the students to the same understanding without harm. The lesson is learned just as thoroughly, but the students remain well. Vaccination is the second classroom. It allows the immune system to study in safety, to practice without pain, and to carry its knowledge forward without loss. Another difference lies in the predictability of the outcome. With natural infection, the severity of the disease cannot be controlled. Some may experience mild symptoms, while others face severe complications. The same pathogen can affect individuals in vastly different ways, depending on age, health, and chance. Vaccination, by contrast, is consistent. The dose is measured, the antigens are known, and the effects are controlled. The immune system receives the lesson in the same way for each person, reducing uncertainty and ensuring protection across populations. This predictability is part of what makes vaccination not only safer but also more effective on a community scale. There are some who wonder if natural infection might create stronger immunity than vaccination. In certain cases, natural infection can indeed leave a long-lasting memory. Yet vaccines are often designed to match or even exceed this effect. Booster doses strengthen and extend the response, and modern vaccine technologies can focus the immune system's attention on the most important antigens. In many cases, the immunity provided by vaccines is as strong, and sometimes stronger, than that gained from natural infection. The difference is not in the quality of the memory but in the experience of learning. Natural infection is uncontrolled and risky. Vaccination is controlled and safe. It is important also to reflect on the role of herd immunity in this comparison. When people gain immunity through natural infection, it comes only after they have been sick, after they have risked spreading the disease to others. Herd immunity built in this way carries with it great suffering. By contrast, when immunity is gained through vaccination, herd immunity is created without widespread illness. Communities become protected without enduring outbreaks. The difference is profound. One path preserves health, while the other demands its loss. The story of smallpox eradication illustrates this clearly. Smallpox survivors carried immunity, but only at the cost of scars, blindness, and countless deaths. It was only through vaccination campaigns, offering immunity without illness, that smallpox was finally eliminated from the world. The same principle applies to other diseases. Polio, measles, diphtheria, each once widespread, each now controlled or diminished, not through natural infection, but through vaccination. The comparison shows not only what is possible, but also what is humane. Natural infection and vaccination both teach the immune system, but they speak in different tones. Natural infection is a harsh voice, demanding, unforgiving, leaving behind both memory and scars. Vaccination is a gentle voice, careful, protective, offering the same memory without the suffering. Both paths lead to the same library of immune knowledge, but one fills the shelves at great cost, while the other fills them with peace. To choose vaccination is to choose the gentle teacher, to accept the lesson without the harm. As you reflect on this comparison, it is calming to see the deep wisdom in guiding the immune system through safe means. Vaccination does not change the nature of immunity, it simply shapes the experience of learning. It aligns with what the immune system already knows how to do, to recognize, to remember, to protect. but it offers the opportunity to do so without risk, without loss, without the toll of illness. It is a reminder that progress in medicine has often been about finding gentler ways to achieve the same ends, about transforming harsh lessons into soft ones, about preserving the harmony of life while still gaining its knowledge. And so, the difference between natural infection and vaccination is not in the destination, but in the journey. Both lead to immunity, both create memory, both protect against the future, but one is a path of suffering, and the other is a path of peace. One exacts a cost, and the other offers a gift. In the quiet rhythm of the immune system, where memory is built and preserved, vaccination is the kind teacher, the safe rehearsal, the gentle guide. It is the way of learning without pain, the way of remembering without harm, and the way of protecting not only oneself, but also the community, softly and enduringly. 17. The balance of immune responses. The immune system is often imagined as a warrior, always fighting, always on guard, ready to unleash its strength against anything that does not belong. Yet this image, while vivid, is incomplete. The immune system is not only about strength, it is also about balance. For every signal that stirs it into action, there are signals that quiet it again. For every recognition of danger, there is also recognition of self, of what must be left untouched. The immune system is most remarkable not when it overpowers, but when it maintains harmony, protecting without harming, remembering without overwhelming. This balance of immune responses is essential, and it shapes not only how we remain healthy, but also how vaccines and antibodies work gently within us. When the immune system encounters a foreign invader, its response must be strong enough to clear the threat, but not so strong that it damages the body itself. This is a delicate line to walk. The molecules released during an immune response, cytokines, antibodies, and other mediators are powerful. They can summon cells, destroy microbes, and dismantle infected tissues. But if they are released in excess, they can also create inflammation that harms healthy organs. Fever, swelling, and redness are signs of this activity. And while they are often part of a healthy defense, they must eventually subside. If they persist too long, the very system designed to protect can become a source of injury. To maintain this balance, the immune system uses many layers of regulation. Regulatory T cells, for instance, play a quiet but vital role in calming the response once the threat has passed. They release signals that tell other immune cells to stand down, to reduce their activity, to return the body to its natural state of rest. Anti-inflammatory molecules are produced, soothing the tissues and repairing the damage that defense may have caused. This turning down of the immune response is as important as the initial activation. Without it, the immune system would remain in a constant state of alarm, unable to return to peace. The need for balance becomes especially clear when we consider allergies. In an allergy, the immune system responds too strongly to something harmless. Pollen, dust, or certain foods are mistaken for threats, and antibodies are produced against them. Mast cells release histamine, leading to itching, swelling, and discomfort. In severe cases, the reaction can be dangerous, far out of proportion to the actual risk. Here, the balance has tipped too far toward response. With not enough restraint, the immune system is doing what it is designed to do, reacting to antigens, but it is doing so without the proper calibration. The same principle is seen in autoimmune diseases, where the immune system mistakenly attacks the body's own tissues. In conditions such as type 1 diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis, self is misidentified as non-self, and the balance between recognition and tolerance is lost. The immune system remembers too aggressively, responds too harshly, and in doing so, creates harm instead of protection. These conditions remind us that immunity is not simply about power but about precision, and that health depends on the fine line between activity and restraint. Vaccination itself depends on this balance. A vaccine must stimulate the immune system enough to create memory, but not so much that it causes illness. The antigens are chosen carefully, the dose measured precisely, and sometimes adjuvants are added to give just the right level of stimulation. The goal is harmony, enough response to teach, enough memory to protect, but not enough to overwhelm. When this balance is achieved, the immune system learns safely, and the individual is left with lasting immunity without harm. The complement system, another part of immunity, also illustrates this balance. Complement proteins circulate quietly in the blood, inactive until triggered. When activated, they can destroy bacteria by forming pores in their membranes. This is effective, but if unchecked, the same process could damage the body's own cells. To prevent this, regulators are always present, molecules that keep complement activity within safe limits. Again, the system is not designed for unrestrained attack but for careful, measured action, strong when needed, quiet when not. Even in infections themselves, the balance of immune responses often determines the outcome. A mild infection may be cleared with little disturbance because the immune system responds proportionately, removing the invader without harming the host. A severe infection may cause more harm not only because of the pathogen but also because of the immune system's overreaction. Cytokine storms, for example, occur when signaling molecules are released in great excess, leading to widespread inflammation and damage. These storms are rare, but they show what happens when balance is lost, and the system turns its power inward. It is soothing to remember that most of the time, the immune system achieves balance effortlessly. Every day, it encounters microbes, particles, and antigens, and it responds in ways that are appropriate and calm. Most of these encounters pass unnoticed because the balance is maintained so well. The immune system knows when to speak loudly and when to whisper, when to act, and when to rest. This harmony allows life to continue undisturbed, even in a world filled with potential challenges. The balance of immune responses is not only about activity and restraint, but also about diversity. Different arms of the immune system contribute in different ways, some more aggressive, some more regulatory. Antibodies neutralize, T cells coordinate, phagocytes engulf, and regulatory cells calm. The interplay of these parts creates resilience. If one element becomes too strong, another can provide balance. If one memory fades, another remains. This diversity ensures that the system is not brittle, but flexible, always able to return to equilibrium. On a larger scale, this balance reflects the philosophy of the immune system itself. Its goal is not to destroy, but to preserve. Its actions are not reckless, but measured. It learns and remembers, but it also forgets when forgetting is necessary. It acts with strength when strength is required, but it also rests, allowing the body to exist in peace. Vaccines, antibodies, and immune cells all participate in this rhythm, guided not by force but by harmony. As you reflect on the balance of immune responses, imagine it as a set of scales, always adjusting, always finding the center. On one side lies action, the power to recognize and respond. On the other lies restraint, the wisdom to stop and to tolerate. The immune system holds these scales gently, keeping them level, ensuring that neither side overwhelms the other. This balance is what allows immunity to protect without harm, to remember without excess, to act without losing peace. In the end, immunity is not simply a matter of fighting. It is a matter of balance, of maintaining harmony within the body while navigating a world filled with microbes and antigens. Too little response, and infections take hold. Too much, and the body suffers from its own defense. The middle path, quiet and measured, is where health resides. This is the gift of the immune system, not only its strength but its balance. A balance that allows life to unfold smoothly, gently, and safely. 18. Global vaccination efforts. When we think of immunity, we often picture it within the quiet boundaries of a single body. The antibodies that circulate in the blood, the memory cells that rest in the lymph nodes, the calm balance of protection unfolding within us. Yet the story of immunity is not only personal, it stretches outward, connecting individuals to families, families to communities, and communities to the entire world. Vaccination has become one of the most powerful expressions of this connection. Through it, societies have joined together in global efforts that transcend borders and cultures, quietly weaving a fabric of shared protection that spans the planet. The roots of global vaccination reach back to the first smallpox campaigns. In the early 19th century, after Edward Jenner's discovery, vaccination began to spread beyond England, moving across Europe, the Americas, Asia, and Africa. Governments, physicians, and communities began to see that this simple act introducing the immune system to a harmless lesson could protect entire populations. By the 20th century, the vision had grown larger. If enough people in enough places were vaccinated, entire diseases could disappear, not only from one country but from the world itself. This vision was not merely hopeful. It became a shared mission that reshaped the landscape of public health. Smallpox was the first and most profound triumph of these global efforts. Once a disease that scarred and killed millions, smallpox was declared eradicated in 1980 after a worldwide vaccination campaign led by the World Health Organization. Teams of health workers traveled across continents, carrying vaccines to remote villages, urban centers, and everywhere in between. The campaign required coordination across nations, persistence in the face of challenges, and trust between people and health systems. It demonstrated that vaccination could do more than prevent illness. It could erase a disease entirely from human life. The eradication of smallpox remains a symbol of what collective effort, guided by the quiet power of the immune system, can achieve. Polio became the next target for global elimination. Once a feared disease that left children paralyzed, polio cases have been reduced by more than 99% since vaccination campaigns began in the late 20th century. Countries across the world have participated, with health workers carrying oral polio vaccines into villages, cities, and refugee camps. The journey has not been without obstacles. Conflict, mistrust, and logistical challenges have slowed progress. But the steady decline of polio demonstrates the resilience of global vaccination efforts. In most parts of the world, the disease has disappeared, and only a few regions continue to report cases. The dream of a polio-free world remains within reach, carried forward by the same persistence that ended smallpox. Other vaccination programs have focused not on eradication but on control. Measles, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis have all been dramatically reduced through coordinated campaigns. The expanded program on immunization, launched by the World Health Organization in the 1970 seconds, sought to ensure that every child in the world could access basic vaccines. Since then, millions of lives have been saved, and illnesses once considered an inevitable part of childhood have become rare in many places. These programs have not only reduced disease but also built stronger health systems, creating networks for delivering care and fostering trust between communities and healthcare workers. Global vaccination efforts also extend into the present moment, responding to new challenges and new technologies. In recent years, the development of vaccines against diseases such as human papillomavirus and hepatitis B has provided protection not only against infections, but also against cancers linked to those infections. These vaccines are now part of worldwide programs aimed at reducing long-term illness. Meanwhile, vaccination campaigns against influenza, meningitis, and other diseases continue to prevent outbreaks, especially in regions where health systems may be fragile. Each effort is a reminder that vaccination is not only about individuals but about populations, not only about the present but about the future. The challenges of global vaccination are real. Geography can make it difficult to reach remote communities. Poverty and inequality can limit access to healthcare. Conflicts and natural disasters can disrupt programs. Misinformation and mistrust can cause hesitation or resistance, slowing the progress of herd immunity. Yet in every case, efforts continue, carried forward by the recognition that vaccination is one of the simplest and most effective ways to prevent suffering. The persistence of these efforts reflects a deep truth, that the quiet gift of immunity is worth pursuing, even in the face of obstacles. One of the most striking qualities of global vaccination efforts is their ability to unite people. Nations may differ in language, culture, or politics, but the need for protection against disease is universal. The immune system works the same way in every body, building memory and providing defense. Vaccines, in turn, offer the same lesson everywhere, teaching immunity gently, whether in a small rural clinic or a bustling city hospital. This universality has made vaccination a shared language of health, a point of connection across humanity. It is a reminder that, beneath differences, we all share the same biology, the same vulnerability, and the same capacity for protection. It is calming to imagine the map of the world dotted with countless moments of vaccination. A child receiving their first dose of polio vaccine in a distant village, a teenager being protected against HPV in a school clinic, an elder receiving a booster to strengthen fading immunity. Each moment is small, yet together they form a vast tapestry of protection. Each dose is a thread woven into the fabric of global health, connecting one person's safety to another's, one community's efforts to another's, until the world itself is wrapped in the shared memory of immunity. The successes of global vaccination remind us that protection is not only possible but cumulative. Every additional person vaccinated strengthens the shield, reduces the chance of outbreaks, and brings humanity one step closer to eliminating diseases altogether. The process may be gradual, but its direction is steady. From smallpox to polio, from measles to rubella, the pattern is clear. Where vaccination is widespread, disease recedes. Where it falters, the lesson is as simple as it is powerful, written not only in laboratories and clinics, but in the lived experience of communities worldwide. As you reflect on these global efforts, it is comforting to know that vaccination is more than a medical tool. It is a symbol of cooperation, of shared responsibility, of humanity's ability to care for itself collectively. It represents the understanding that health is not only individual but communal, that one person's immunity contributes to another's safety, and that together, we can shape a world where diseases that once defined human history become only quiet memories. Vaccination, in its global form, is the practice of solidarity written into biology, a gentle act repeated millions of times that adds up to a vast and enduring peace. 19. The future of vaccines. The story of vaccines has always been one of progress, beginning with the simple observation that surviving a disease could provide protection and evolving into the sophisticated methods we now use to guide immunity safely. Yet the journey is far from complete. Just as the immune system itself continues to adapt and learn across a lifetime, so too does vaccine science continue to grow, always seeking gentler, broader, and more effective ways of teaching the body. The future of vaccines is filled with quiet possibilities, technologies that promise not only to protect against familiar illnesses, but also to address challenges that once seemed far beyond the reach of immunization. From universal vaccines to cancer prevention, from new delivery methods to personalized approaches, the horizon is wide, and its unfolding promises to carry the same calm philosophy of guiding the immune system with care. One of the most promising directions is the search for universal vaccines. Seasonal influenza is a clear example of why this is needed. The flu virus changes frequently, altering the proteins on its surface so that the immune system no longer recognizes it fully. Each year, scientists must predict which strains will be most common and design vaccines accordingly. Sometimes the match is close, and immunity is strong. Other times, the virus changes more than expected, and the vaccine is less effective. A universal flu vaccine would solve this problem by targeting parts of the virus that remain the same year after year, creating long-lasting protection that does not require yearly updates. Researchers are steadily moving toward this goal, using new insights into the virus's structure to design vaccines that focus on these stable regions. The prospect is one of a calmer, more enduring form of protection, where memory lasts across many seasons. Another area of focus is the use of vaccines against diseases that have long resisted prevention. HIV, for example, has proven a challenging target because of its ability to hide within cells and change its surface proteins rapidly. Yet researchers are exploring new strategies, such as teaching the immune system to produce broadly neutralizing antibodies that can recognize many variations of the virus at once. The goal is not just to prevent infection, but to finally control a disease that has touched millions of lives. Tuberculosis, malaria, and other global illnesses are also part of this future vision, with vaccines in development that may one day provide reliable shields. Where none existed before, the future also points toward vaccines designed for non-infectious diseases, particularly cancers. Some viruses, like human papillomavirus and hepatitis B, are already linked to cancers, and vaccines against them have proven that prevention can extend far beyond infection. But researchers are now looking at ways to train the immune system to recognize cancer cells directly. Because cancer arises from the body's own tissues, it is harder for the immune system to distinguish. But scientists are finding unique markers that set cancer cells apart. Cancer vaccines may one day help the immune system identify and eliminate tumors, not by introducing a foreign pathogen, but by sharpening its awareness of subtle changes within. The idea that immunity could extend into the realm of cancer prevention is a testament to how far the philosophy of gentle training can reach. New methods of delivering vaccines are also part of this unfolding future. Injections, while effective, are not the only way to present antigens to the body. Nasal sprays, oral tablets, and skin patches are being explored as alternatives, each offering the possibility of easier, more comfortable immunization. Microneedle patches, for instance, use tiny projections that dissolve into the skin, delivering the vaccine painlessly, while also stimulating strong immune responses in the skin's rich network of immune cells. Such innovations could make vaccines more accessible, reducing the barriers to immunization and extending protection more widely across populations. Personalized vaccines are another gentle horizon. Just as individuals differ in their genetic makeup, so too do they differ in their immune responses. Some people respond strongly to certain vaccines, while others require more stimulation. By studying these differences, scientists hope to create vaccines tailored to individuals, optimizing protection in a way that aligns with each person's biology. In cancer treatment, this idea is already being explored, with vaccines designed to target the specific mutations present in a patient's tumor. Though still in early stages, the potential of personalized immunization reflects the same principle as always guiding the immune system with care. But now, with even greater precision, the future of vaccines also includes the use of new materials and technologies. Nanoparticles, for instance, can be engineered to carry antigens in precise shapes and patterns, mimicking the structure of viruses in ways that stimulate strong responses without risk. Artificial intelligence is being used to predict which parts of pathogens will make the best targets for immunity, speeding up the design process. Advances in genetic sequencing allow scientists to study emerging pathogens quickly and design vaccines against them in record time. These tools expand the possibilities of what vaccines can achieve, making the immune system's education faster, broader, and more adaptable. It is important to remember that all these innovations remain grounded in the same quiet truth. The immune system learns through exposure. Whether the lesson comes in the form of a protein fragment, a strand of RNA, a nanoparticle, or a personalized blueprint, the process is always one of recognition, response, memory, and protection. Vaccines do not change this process. They simply offer it in a way that is safe, measured, and thoughtful. The immune system is the same student it has always been, attentive and capable. What changes is the way the lesson is presented, made clearer and gentler by the tools of science. The global nature of these future vaccines is also worth reflecting on. Diseases do not respect borders, and pathogens can travel swiftly in a connected world. Vaccines of the future will likely be designed not only for individuals or nations, but for humanity as a whole. Universal vaccines, cancer vaccines, and personalized approaches all carry within them the potential to shape health on a global scale. They remind us that the immune system's wisdom is shared across all people, and that the gentle art of vaccination is a common heritage, one that unites us in the pursuit of safety and peace. As you imagine the future of vaccines, picture it not as a sudden leap, but as a steady unfolding, like the turning of pages in a book. Each innovation is a new chapter, building upon what has come before, adding new details, new possibilities, new hope. The story is not complete, but its direction is clear, toward gentler methods, broader protection, and deeper harmony between human knowledge and the body's natural wisdom. Just as the immune system remembers and adapts, so too does vaccine science evolve, always refining, always seeking better ways to guide the quiet strength of immunity. In the end, the future of vaccines is not about replacing the past, but about continuing its legacy. Jenner's cowpox experiment, Pasteur's discoveries, the eradication of smallpox, all of these were beginnings. The innovations of today and tomorrow are continuations, carrying forward the same principle into new realms. The immune system remains our quiet companion, always ready to learn, always ready to protect. Vaccines, whether old or new, traditional or futuristic, are its teachers, shaping its memory in ways that preserve health and life. And so, the horizon is filled with promise, a promise of safety, of shared protection, of lessons learned without harm, of a world where more diseases fade into memory, leaving behind only the gentle presence of immunity itself. 20. Closing reflections on protection. As our journey through the world of antibodies, vaccines, and immunity draws to a close, it is soothing to pause and reflect on the quiet harmony that underlies it all. The immune system is not loud, though it is powerful. It does not demand attention, though it works tirelessly in the background of every moment of life. Its story is one of balance, of recognition, of memory, and of protection. And within that story, vaccines have become one of humanity's most profound tools, guiding the immune system gently, ensuring that its lessons are learned in safety rather than in suffering. What began centuries ago as observation and curiosity has grown into a vast symphony of knowledge and practice, touching every corner of the world. Antibodies are perhaps the most visible part of this story, though they themselves are invisible to the eye. These Y-shaped molecules drift quietly through the bloodstream, attaching themselves with precision to antigens that do not belong. They are guardians and guides, neutralizing viruses, blocking toxins, and calling other cells to action. Their work is delicate but decisive, transforming the chaos of exposure into the clarity of defense. And their memory carried within B cells, refined with each encounter, is the thread that connects one moment of infection or vaccination to decades of future safety. Vaccines, in turn, are the gentle teachers of this system. They do not overwhelm, they do not harm, but they present antigens in a way that allows the immune system to study them carefully. They offer practice instead of illness, rehearsal instead of suffering. Each vaccine is a quiet lesson, a story told to the immune system in the language of proteins and shapes, a story that the body remembers faithfully long after the lesson is over. From the early cowpox experiments to the refined technologies of today, vaccines have always served the same purpose: to prepare, to guide, to ensure that when the real challenge arrives, the immune system responds not with hesitation but with confidence. When seen in this light, immunity is not only a biological process but also a philosophy of life. It reminds us that preparation is gentler than reaction, that prevention is kinder than cure, that memory is stronger than forgetting. It shows us that health is not only the absence of illness but the presence of readiness, the quiet assurance that the body carries within it the wisdom of past encounters. Each antibody, each memory cell, each vaccine given is part of this assurance, part of the silent structure that allows life to continue peacefully in a world full of unseen challenges. This story is also one of connection. Immunity does not belong to one person alone, but spreads outward, linking individuals to communities. The antibodies that protect one person also protect those around them by stopping disease from spreading. The vaccines that safeguard a child ripple outward, contributing to herd immunity and shielding the vulnerable. When entire populations carry immune memory, diseases lose their power to circulate, and outbreaks fade. Smallpox, once a terror across continents, is now gone from the world, because vaccination created immunity, not just in individuals, but in humanity as a whole. Polio, too, is on the edge of disappearance, waiting only for the final threads of transmission to be cut. Each of these triumphs reminds us that immunity is not only personal but communal, a fabric of protection woven from countless individual strands. And yet, the story of immunity is not only about the victories of science, it is also about the wisdom of the body itself. Long before scientists discovered antibodies or named memory cells, the immune system was already doing its work, already distinguishing self from non-self, already remembering what it had seen before. What science has done is not to invent immunity, but to understand it, to recognize its patterns, and to find ways of guiding it. Vaccines are simply tools that align with the immune system's natural rhythm, offering it safe lessons and reminding it of what matters most. The true genius lies in the body's own ability to learn and remember, a gift written into the fabric of life itself. As we look forward, the future of vaccines is filled with promise. But even as we imagine universal flu vaccines, cancer immunizations, or personalized approaches, the essence will remain unchanged. It will always be about teaching the immune system safely, about helping it remember without pain. The tools may grow more sophisticated, the lessons more precise, but the philosophy will remain the same. The immune system will continue to be the student, attentive and capable, and vaccines will continue to be the teachers, patient and gentle. Together, they will continue the story of protection, one lesson at a time. It is calming to think of this story as a circle rather than a line. A vaccine is given, the immune system responds, antibodies are produced, memory is formed, and protection endures. When the pathogen appears, memory awakens, antibodies flow again, and the circle completes itself. With boosters, the circle is traced again, stronger each time. With herd immunity, the circle expands, encompassing entire communities. With global vaccination efforts, the circle grows still wider, reaching across continents until it becomes a circle that encloses the whole of humanity. This circle is not broken. It continues, quiet and unending, a rhythm of protection that endures across generations. The harmony of this circle is what makes immunity such a profound part of life. It is not a battle, though it protects. It is not a war, though it defends. It is a balance, a memory, a continuity. It is the quiet conversation between the body and the world, the dialogue of antigens and antibodies, of cells and memory, of vaccines and lessons. It is a story that unfolds without noise, without fanfare, yet with effects so deep that they shape the very course of human history. And so, as we conclude this exploration of antibodies and vaccines, it is comforting to rest in the thought that protection is always with you. Antibodies drift silently in your blood, memory cells wait patiently in your tissues, and vaccines carry their lessons within you long after the moment of injection has passed. Around you, others carry their own protection, and together these individual shields form a shared web of safety. Beyond you, across the world, countless lives are being protected at this very moment through the same gentle process. All of it unfolds quietly, unseen, yet all of it is real, constant, and enduring. In the stillness of reflection, immunity reveals itself not as something fierce or frightening, but as something peaceful and reassuring. It is the steady presence of guardians who never sleep, the careful memory of past encounters, the gentle promise of vaccines that speak softly to the body's wisdom. It is a reminder that life is not lived in isolation, but in connection, with each person's health linked to the health of others. With each act of vaccination extending protection outward, it is the assurance that, even in a world full of unseen challenges, the body carries within it the tools to remain safe, the memory to remain ready, and the harmony to remain whole. And so, the story of antibodies and vaccines is, at its heart, a story of guardianship, quiet, constant, and kind. It is a story of the body's natural wisdom, of science's gentle guidance, and of the shared protection that binds humanity together. It is a story still unfolding, but one that carries with it the promise of peace, the gift of memory, and the enduring presence of immunity, always watching, always remembering, always protecting,